I was clearly training in martial arts. How I became a being with supernatural powers. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 351, Statue. Bang. The next moment, King Niu swung his axe and chopped the two masters of Dao country into pieces. But Wei Kyumei also appeared again, using extremely terrifying palm power to hit King Niu's back of the head fiercely. Just when Wei Kyumei thought that she could kill King Niu with one palm, she didn't feel a talisman appearing behind her and quietly attached to her shoulder. Bang. The next moment, Wei Kyumei felt as if her shoulder was suppressed by a mountain, and it broke and exploded fiercely. Wei Kyumei didn't understand what happened at all. The next moment, King Niu turned around, swung the giant axe, and split it in half. King Niu, you owe me a life again. Zhao Zinmo's figure appeared quietly and said with a smile, if you don't take action, she can't kill me. King Niu shook his head. I don't care. Zhao Zinmo smiled. But the next moment, a master of Dao country came to kill. Zhao Zinmo was not a warrior and was not good at direct combat, so he dodged quickly. Seeing this, the master of Dao country hurriedly chased forward, but was killed by Zhao Zinmo's talisman formation halfway. The subsequent battle was even more brutal and terrifying. The suburbs of Shenyu City were completely reduced to a bloody battlefield. Qin Yang, the white-browed old monk and others did not take action, but took advantage of the battle and came directly to the city wall. Naturally, there were some people blocking the way, but they were all killed by the sword energy emitted casually by the old man with a sword on his back. Great compassion and great mercy palm. The white-browed old monk directly hit the city wall. A palm print wrapped with Buddha's light suddenly appeared in the void and fell into the city wall. Boom. The next moment, the entire city wall exploded and turned into countless fragments. This is called great compassion and great mercy. I think it's more like great evil and great evil. Qin Yang complained in his heart. After the city wall was broken, it was the ancient building complex of the desolate moon temple. Qin Yang, the old man with the sword on his back and others walked in directly. But along the way, they did not encounter any attacks. It seemed that all the people in the Wild Moon Temple had fled. But this would not happen in the Wild Moon Temple. The believers of the Wild Moon Temple were very fanatical and pious. They would not even blink an eye if the temple asked them to sacrifice their lives. It's strange. Where did the people in the Wild Moon Temple go? The Taoist in the 7-star orb looked puzzled. Maybe they are all dead. The old man with the sword on his back narrowed his eyes. He seemed to smell a hint of blood. Go to the depths of the temple, and you will know. The hall that enshrines the clone of the Wild Moon God is there, and you should be able to find the answer. Qin Yang said softly. Several people immediately went to the depths of the Wild Moon Temple. This Wild Moon Temple seemed to be designed to facilitate believers to kneel down, with only a wide and straight avenue leading directly. At the end of the avenue, there was a wide square. The entire square was also empty, without any figure. The Wild Moon Temple stood in the depths of the square, ancient and magnificent. At this moment, the door of the temple was open, as if welcoming Qin Yang and others. Interesting. I really want to see what this desolate moon god looks like, Qin Yang said softly. Along the way, the statues of the desolate moon temple he encountered were all white jade crescent moon statues, not real bodies. In the legend of Dao country, the only statue of the desolate moon god is only in Shenyu City. I want to see it too. The old man with the sword on his back nodded. Several people walked into the temple in no particular order. In this empty temple, Qin Yang finally saw a living person. The man was wearing a white robe and praying to the glowing statue. Hearing the footsteps of Qin Yang and others coming in, he slowly turned around. Hello everyone. Zhang Yao smiled. He had fair and handsome features, and when he smiled, his smile seemed very real. But his smile gave people a strange feeling. It was not false, but empty. In Qin Yang's words, it was more like a robot smiling and greeting him. Are you the chief priest of the desolate moon temple? Qin Yang asked softly. That's me. Zhang Yao nodded gently. Then why don't you take action? Qin Yang was a little confused. Seniors, do you want to take action? Zhang Yao asked. No. I hate violence the most, and I usually don't take action. Qin Yang smiled. That's fine. I don't like fighting and killing either. Zhang Yao nodded. Then can you answer a few questions for me? Qin Yang asked softly. Of course I can. Zhang Yao agreed immediately. Who is the desolate moon god? Qin Yang asked softly. You outsiders should know who the desolate moon god is better than me. Zhang Yao said lightly. I don't know. Qin Yang narrowed his eyes. The god of desolate moon is the god of desolate moon. According to the records of my god of desolate sect, this land was once ruled by a terrible force called the Dark Heaven sect. Later, a man named the god of desolate moon led many powerful men to come and defeated the Dark Heaven sect. But at that time, the leader of the Dark Heaven sect turned into a dark seed before his death and sealed this land, making it impossible for all living beings to take a step out. The god of desolate moon was also severely injured because of killing the leader of the Dark Heaven sect and fell into a deep sleep. For countless years, our god of desolate moon temple has been collecting the power of faith of the people of Dao country, hoping to awaken the god of desolate moon one day. In this way, we can also break free from this cage and take a look at the vast world outside. The sect demon smiled. Since you are for the god of desolate moon, why do you regard us as dark evil demons? Qin Yang questioned. This is the will of the god of desolate moon. I can't change it. The sect demon shook his head. Hasn't the god of desolate moon been sleeping for countless years? Jiang Sheng sneered. Huang Yu is indeed asleep. But after so many years, with such a huge power of faith and incense, she should have regained some consciousness. Zhang Yao explained. If it is really Huang Yuxin's consciousness, why does she regard us as enemies? Qin Yang asked with a smile. Maybe there is some misunderstanding, or Huang Yuxin is disturbed by something. I can't judge. As the chief priest of Huang Yu Temple, I can only act according to Huang Yuxin's will. Zhang Yao said calmly. Okay, since you don't know anything, please get out of the way. I will personally ask Huang Yuxin why she did this. Qin Yang said in a deep voice. You can't touch Huang Yuxin's clone. Zhang Yao stopped in front of Qin Yang. Why? Is there something strange about this statue? Qin Yang asked. It's not weird. Under this statue, the seeds of the underworld are suppressed. Huang Yuxin dragged his seriously injured body to set up the sealing formation and left a trace of his own power as the eye of the formation to suppress the seeds of the underworld day and night. Once anything goes wrong with this statue, the seeds of the underworld will most likely escape. Zhang Yao said in a deep voice. Chapter 352 Determination. Hearing Zhang Yao's words, the white-browed old monk, the old man with a sword on his back, Jiang Sheng and others all frowned. They had almost no trust in Zhang Yao, but they could not tell the truth from the falsehood in Zhang Yao's words. Because this person seemed to have no emotions and would not have any fluctuations when speaking. They were afraid that if what Zhang Yao said was true, once the statue was touched, the sealing array would fail, thus allowing the underworld to escape. Qin Yang looked at Zhang Yao and smiled. It doesn't matter. I will be responsible. If something goes wrong, I will see what the statue of Huang Yu looks like. Zhang Yao shook his head and said, I won't let you get what you want. Then do it. You said so much in the end, but you still have to do it? Qin Yang twisted his neck. Once the underworld is born, you will be the biggest sinner between heaven and earth. Zhang Yao said coldly. No. Even if the underworld is born, I can kill it, so you don't need to worry about it. Qin Yang said calmly. Hearing this, the old man with the sword on his back had a gleam in his eyes. That's right. Even if the underworld is born, what does it matter? Why should we fear a fight? The white-browed old monk clasped his hands together and said lightly, the method used by the temple keeper to interfere with the mind is really powerful. The Taoist in the 7-star robe also smiled and said, I almost got caught. In this hall, there seems to be some strange power that can make people's minds hesitant and lose their ability to think. If it weren't for Qin Yang, I'm afraid they really wouldn't dare to do it. Zhang Yao heard these words and shook his head slightly. It almost succeeded. Qin Yang said lightly, I think the statue should not be Huang Yuxin, but the underworld. Zhang Yao grinned. You won't know until you win. The next moment, he turned into a ball of white light and suddenly flew into the glowing statue. Boom. The whole hall shook. The statue swelled wildly and expanded, bursting the entire temple. Qin Yang and others quickly left and came to the spacious square. A giant statue more than 10 meters high appeared in front of them. The giant statue was as white as jade, but its head was a half-moon shape, floating at the neck, mysterious and ancient. "You sinners, your sins are unforgivable." The half-moon statue made a voice of a patriarch. The next moment, the bright sky suddenly darkened and turned into a dark darkness. For a while, the whole Shenai city was boiling. This strange phenomenon did not cause any panic to the people of the city. Instead, they thought it was a miracle. The god of desolate moon is really coming. He will personally take action to destroy these dark demons. Everyone, let us pray for the god of desolate moon. The people of Shenai city took to the streets, knelt down in the direction of the desolate moon temple, and recited scriptures. Deu Palace. Sunding, who stood on a tower, looking at the desolate moon temple in the distance, with a look of surprise. Is this the true power of the grand temple priest? It can even change the power of heaven and earth this time. The dark evil demons attacked, and the royal family only sent out the Shenai Legion to make a show. Sunding, who knew that the Shenai Legion could not stop these dark evil demons, and would only become cannon fodder in the end. He wanted to see the grand temple priest and those dark evil demons fight to the death. Whoosh. The next moment, Sunding, whose body disappeared from the tower and headed towards the desolate moon temple. In the desolate moon temple, as the half-moon statue raised its hands, countless black meteors suddenly fell from the dark clouds, falling towards Qin Yang and others. These meteors were covered with dark spikes, entangled with evil spirits, and carried the momentum of falling, as if to smash everything. "I'll do it," the old man with the sword on his back shouted, pulled out the rusty iron sword, and lifted it from bottom to top. Swish, swish, swish. Countless sword ki suddenly slashed out, densely intertwined, forming a terrifying sword ki net in the air. When the black meteor fell, the sword ki net spread throughout the void, instantly cut it into countless pieces of stone. Swish. The half-moon statue suddenly burst out with a terrifying speed, turning into a stream of light and rushing towards the old man with the sword on his back. It was too big, like a white star coming across the sky, and the air was squeezed and burst. The white-browed old monk suddenly blocked the old man with the sword on his back. He roared, manifested his Dharma body, and turned into a 5 or 6 meter white flame Buddha. His right palm was wrapped with Buddha light and hit it fiercely. In the void, it seemed that countless sounds of chanting Buddhist scriptures were heard. Great compassion palm. Boom. The white-browed old monk hit the half-moon statue, and the ground suddenly collapsed. He was knocked out more than 10 meters. The next moment, the Taoist in the 7-star robe also used his Dharmakaya. He stepped on the 7-star steps, emitting hazy starlight, as if he had turned into a starlight god, and slashed with a sword. Whoosh. The starlight was as bright as the Milky Way. He slashed at the half-moon statue at the speed of light. Boom. A deep sword mark suddenly appeared. The next moment, the half-moon statue was covered with dense small holes. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Countless evil black lights shot out, as if piercing through the void, shooting at the Taoist in the 7-star robe. "Master, don't be afraid." Qin Yang waved the black tortoise sword to kill. Facing such an attack, he also directly used his Dharmakaya, with dark blue mist wrapped around his body, his muscles horribly knotted, like a giant god, and a black tortoise shadow vaguely appeared behind him. Desolate sea, dead sea floating and sinking. The sword light full of death whistled out, constantly slashing these black lights. 7 stars slay demons. The Taoist in the 7 stars robe also took this opportunity to roar, urging his vitality and drawing the power of the stars. For a moment, the outline of the 7 stars appeared vaguely in the sky. Finally, the outline of the 7 stars became more and more clear, and turned into a 7-star sword that fell from the sky and fiercely stabbed the half-moon statue. The 7-star sword was like a beam of starlight, piercing straight into the chest of the half-moon statue. The half-moon statue roared wildly, black light surged all over its body, and pulled the 7-star sword out of its chest. Puff. The next moment, the 7-star sword was crushed by him, and turned into starlight and dissipated. Boom. Jiang Sheng and the woman from the Void Immortal Palace finally made a move, and launched a terrifying attack. Jiang Sheng held a Fang Shinhua, bursting with purple lightning, causing the grey sky lightning snake to roll away, as if a thunder dragon fell from the sky and fell fiercely on the head of the half-moon statue. Buzz, the half-moon head actually floated up suddenly and hit the Fang Shinhua fiercely. Jiang Sheng was caught off guard. The muscles in his hands burst, the Fang Shinhua was bent and fell heavily to the ground. Whoosh! The woman from Zuxan Palace waved her hands, and 2 white ribbons suddenly flew out, tightly wrapping around the half-moon statue like 2 giant pythons. The next moment, Qin Yang, the white-browed old monk, and the Taoist in the 7-star orb all launched their strongest attacks. The desolate sea, the raging sea roars. Qin Yang's black tortoise blade gathered a majestic momentum and hit the half-moon statue like a raging sea. The white-browed old monk threw a terrifying Buddha palm. The 7-star Taoist also slashed out the 7-star sword key again. Clang! The old man with the sword on his back also slashed out a sword. The sword key whistled, as if cutting through the sky and the earth. Boom! The terrible attacks continued to fall on the half-moon statue, erupting with terrible airwaves, turning into colorful and brilliant light. Chapter 353, Fierce Battle. Boom. As the airwaves continued to spread and burst, the temple buildings continued to collapse and shatter, turning into countless debris. This guy Qin Yang narrowed his eyes slightly. He saw that the half-moon statue was still standing in place despite the damage on its surface. Huang, you protect me. The voice of the Zhang Yao came out. The next moment, a beam of moonlight fell on the Zhang Yao. The wounds on the surface of the half-moon statue were recovering rapidly. Can this power also mobilize the power of heaven and earth? The old man with a sword on his back frowned. I want to see if he is really invincible. The Taoist in the 7-star orb snorted coldly. Kill. Qin Yang's eyes were cold and fierce. Everyone surrounded the half-moon statue and launched terrible attacks. The half-moon statue suddenly appeared with moonlight spears in both hands, and it swung wildly with a small number of people. Boom. This is a peerless battle. The old man with a sword on his back and others are all Tangshan washing, and their attack power is terrifying and unmatched. Even though Qin Yang was a Dharmakaya martial saint, his strength was not weaker than that of the Tangshan martial saint, and he was also very powerful. But the half-moon statue was even more terrifying. Its physique was too terrifying, and no matter how many people attacked it, it would only have a few more cracks. The moonlight spear in his hand swung, and the sky was full of bright moonlight, which kept sweeping towards everyone. The huge temple complex was almost reduced to ashes. The terrible energy turned everything into nothingness. The battle lasted for more than an hour. Even Qin Yang couldn't hold on. The battle was too intense, the rhythm was suffocating, and the moonlight spear of the half-moon statue was too fast and fierce. Qin Yang couldn't be careless, and had to concentrate. Otherwise, he would be pierced by the opponent's moonlight spear. The same was true for the others. This half-moon statue was indeed terrifying. Facing the siege of so many martial saints, it was still terrifyingly strong. Damn it. This guy has recovered again. The old man with the sword on his back frowned. Every time they tried to seriously injure the half-moon statue, the other party would summon the moonlight to come down and recover as before. The half-moon statue could recover, but they couldn't. Even though the martial saint had an extremely terrifying physique, the other party's attack was also extremely terrifying. If they continued to fight like this, it would not be them who besieged the half-moon statue to death, but they would be exhausted to death by the half-moon statue. We must cut off his connection with the moonlight. You cover me. The Taoist in the 7-star orb said in a deep voice. His figure flashed, and he circulated his own heavenly star energy and mobilized the power of the 7 stars. The sky soon showed a strange side. The looming grey moon was surrounded by 7 stars. 7 stars locking the moon. This is a strange phenomenon that has never appeared in the ages. Puff. The Taoist in the 7-star orb suddenly spit out a mouthful of blood. The aura emitted by the grey moon was too strange. He locked it with 7 stars and naturally had to bear a huge backlash. Locked. The old man with the sword on his back was stunned, and the iron sword in his hand slashed fiercely. The terrifying sword energy gathered on him, and a terrifying sword energy several tens of meters long slashed towards the half-moon statue. The half-moon statue quickly thrust out the moonlight spear, as if countless silver snakes were dancing wildly, ravaging the void and swallowing everything, including the terrifying sword energy. But the next moment, the white-browed old monk, Qin Yang, Jiangsheng, and the woman from the dotted line palace launched attacks at the same time. East, south, west, and north. Their attacks locked all directions of the half-moon statue. The half-moon statue roared wildly, and a moon ring bloomed all over its body, spreading in all directions. When the black tortoise blade fell into the moon ring, Qin Yang felt a chaotic and gloomy energy surge. He quickly encouraged the Bidao Zenwu Yuan Qi, trying to offset this energy. Bang! The impact force formed by the collision of the two energies forced him back more than 10 meters. The same thing happened to several others. What about the 7 stars locking the moon? This is in Shenyu City. Believers of the wild moon god, please sacrifice your lives to help me. The half-moon statue shouted. The sound spread far and wide, and everyone in Shenyu City heard it. For a moment, the people who were kneeling in the streets and alleys went crazy. The wild moon god needs us. We need to help him kill the dark evil demons. For a moment, some people seemed to be bewitched by the voice and stood up. They took out the daggers they had prepared long ago and stabbed them into their lower abdomens. These actions seemed to be contagious, and more people chose to follow suit. The dead people exuded wisps of blood, forming a stream of scarlet blood, falling towards the wild moon temple. This is. Qin Yang turned his head suddenly. He saw that the scarlet blood flowed on the half-moon statue. The endless blood made it emit scarlet blood light all over its body, and even the floating half-moon head turned into a scarlet blood moon. Its breath became more terrifying and powerful. The half-moon statue suddenly stabbed out the moon spear in his hand. At this moment, even the moon spear in his hand turned into a scarlet blood dragon. The white-browed old monk screamed, and his chest was pierced by the blood spear, leaving a terrible hole, and it was broken open fiercely. Kill. Qin Yang growled, and swung his sword at the half-moon statue. Boom. The battle became bloody again. The half-moon statue, supported by scarlet blood, became even more terrifying, and the blood-red spear swept across the world. Qin Yang and his men fought hard, trying to kill the half-moon statue. Boom. The earth was destroyed over and over again. After hundreds of moves, the woman from the dotted line palace was pierced through the heart, and died on the spot. Jiangsheng's two thighs were broken, and he lay on the ground gasping for breath. Sword Dance 9 Sky. The old man with the sword on his back burst out with the strongest sword intent in his life. At this moment, he seemed to be integrated with the rusty long sword in his hand. But a touch of sword energy suddenly appeared in the void. In an instant, this touch of sword energy turned into thousands of sword energy that enveloped the half-moon statue. The half-moon statue seemed to see countless old men with swords on their backs shooting swords at it. All kinds of terrifying sword techniques seemed to bloom like fireworks at this moment. Every wisp of sword energy here is a lifelong sword intention of the old man with a sword on his back. This is the strongest sword. Enough to strangle everything. I will not die. The half-moon statue roared, and the blood-red spear in his hand stabbed out wildly, as if poking the void into a hornet's nest. Clang clang clang. But there were too many, and too dense sword energies, and even the blood-red spear was strangled. Puff kai kai. After more than 10 breaths, the half-moon statue was covered with sword marks all over its body, as if broken glass kept falling off its body. With a roar, the body of the half-moon statue exploded. A figure slowly appeared in Qin Yang's eyes. Zhang Yao, the chief priest of the desolate moon temple. He looked at the old man with a sword on his back and smiled. What a terrible sword. But you can only break a stone statue. The old man with a sword on his back sat cross-legged on the ground and lowered his head. The sword just now exhausted his mind and died. And me. Qin Yang held the Zuanwu knife in his hand and stared at Zhang Yao. Now the old man with the sword on his back and the woman from Zuxan Palace were dead. Jiangsheng and the old monk with white eyebrows were seriously injured, and the Taoist in the 7-star robe wanted to lock Huayu. After the fight, he was the only one left. Just you, Zhang Yao grinned. Without this statue, what are you? Qin Yang twisted his neck. Chapter 354 Freeze. HMPH. Do you really think you can beat me? Zhang Yao stared at Qin Yang and sneered. The next moment, he absorbed the scarlet blood flow in the sky again. But without the statue, he obviously couldn't bear too much. Only a beam of blood light as thick as an arm fell on his head. The next moment, Zhang Yao's body suddenly swelled up, turning into 5 or 6 meters tall, and dozens of scarlet tentacles appeared behind him, which were weird and evil. Qin Yang had experienced a lot of fighting, and he was also covered with scars, and had several terrifying blood holes. But as he circulated the Deadwood Immortal Sutra, the Deadwood Immortal vitality full of vitality spread throughout his limbs and bones, quickly recovering his body injuries. He was wrapped in cold water mist, his left hand showed a snake head, and his right hand showed a dragon head, and his aura was deep and cold. It's useless. Zhang Yao laughed ferociously, and the blood-red tentacles behind him stabbed towards Qin Yang frantically. Puff. The dense scarlet tentacles were so dense and terrifying that every strike seemed to be able to pierce the void and form dense red shadows. Qin Yang held the Zuanwu knife and displayed the Shura Blood Sea. The boundless killing aura bloomed, as if the Shura of Purgatory had descended to the world, constantly killing those scarlet tentacles. Boom! Exclamation mark. For a moment, the strange killing aura spread. Although the duel between the two was not as terrible as before, it was more intense and the fight was swift. Qin Yang had to slash hundreds of knives almost every second to block these scarlet tentacles. Interesting. Zhang Yao's eyes became serious. This human was indeed capable. He stirred up the scarlet blood flow in the sky. For a moment, countless wailing resentful souls descended from the sky and pounced on Qin Yang. Zhang Yao wanted to use the resentful souls to interfere with Qin Yang's mind. Once the other party was disturbed, he would be killed instantly. But Qin Yang laughed when he saw this scene. He took out the Zuanwu jade pendant from his arms and sacrificed it. A deep and ancient shadow of the black tortoise appeared in the ruins in an instant. The black tortoise looked at the resentful souls that kept coming and opened its mouth excitedly. The dragon-headed mouth seemed to have a terrible suction force, especially for those resentful souls who were constantly sucked into the mouth of the black tortoise. Even after absorbing the resentful souls, the black tortoise seemed to be unsatisfied and continued to open its mouth, trying to absorb the scarlet river floating in the void. This time, even Qin Yang himself was a little stunned. He originally thought that the black tortoise shadow could suppress and kill these evil resentful souls. Unexpectedly, the scarlet river composed of countless blood and ki could be swallowed. Just like a dragon sucking water, the scarlet river was constantly sucked into the big mouth of the black tortoise shadow. These blood and water essences seemed to be a great tonic for the black tortoise shadow, and its figure became clearer and clearer. Damn it. The clan monster naturally would not allow the black tortoise shadow to swallow like this, and waved its blood-red tentacles, and pulled it over. But Qin Yang grinned, holding a long knife, and rushing towards the demon. Swish. His figure suddenly crossed dozens of meters, like a cold light flashing. Desolate sea dark sea moment. Qin Yang had never used this knife before, and even the demon did not think that Qin Yang could burst out such a terrifying killing move. With a snort, the demon's head was actually cut in half by Qin Yang. It's useless. I can't be killed. The next moment, the head of the demon that was cut in half actually healed. Then, countless scarlet tentacles slammed towards Qin Yang like crazy. Let's see how many times you can heal. Qin Yang activated the Yin Yang life and death talisman, stimulating the potential of life and death, and pushing the power to an extremely terrifying level. Boom. When his left arm condensed this power, the whole arm seemed to turn into a giant dragon, with thick and ferocious tendons entwined, and hit hard. The power of a dragon. This is a terrible magical power condensed by the dragon subduing fist. Dragon subduing broken void. Qin Yang's punch truly achieved the effect of shattering the void. Wherever the fist passed, the void continued to shatter and crack like a mirror, and then hit the head of the Zhang Yao heavily. Bang. The entire head was smashed into minced meat by Qin Yang. Bang, 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 but the next moment, many scarlet tentacles also hit him hard. Even with the protection of the Yin Yang life and death talisman, the power of those scarlet tentacles was very terrifying, and Qin Yang vomited blood crazily. Then, the Zhang Yao grew a new head again. Qin Yang's eyes were bloodshot at this moment, like a crazy beast. Let's see who dies first. He suddenly inserted the Zuanwu knife into the Zhang Yao's belly, swung a pair of iron fists, and hit the Zhang Yao crazily. The power of a dragon mixed with a dragon subduing fist was terrifying and boundless, as if it could crush the void and break the mountains. Bang, 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 the fight became bloody and tragic. Qin Yang let those scarlet tentacles whip him, and he operated the Yin Yang life and death talisman and the Deadwood Immortal Sutra to prevent his body from collapsing. The Zhang Yao was also beaten into a bloody mud by Qin Yang's fists. Exclamation mark. Die, die, die. Qin Yang roared wildly, and his body suddenly burst out with extreme cold air, freezing the Zhang Yao into ice. The next moment, his fist flashed with brilliant platinum light, like a white meteor falling into the void, and slammed into the ice sculpture fiercely. Boom. The ice sculpture was smashed into ice powder. The terrible power was transmitted to the ground, and even caused a violent collapse. This time, no matter how terrifying the Zhang Yao's regeneration ability was, it was useless. Qin Yang stood in the depths of the pit. His body was covered in blood, like a god. The Deadwood Immortal Sutra was still running wildly in his body. His internal injuries were also in a mess at the moment. Internal organs, bones, flesh, and blood collapsed. Continuously urging the power of a dragon made things worse. If it weren't for the Dead Tree Immortal Sutra, Qin Yang would have been unable to resist. After an incense stick, Qin Yang barely recovered some strength and climbed out of the pit. The Taoist in the 7-star robe was healing the white-browed old monk and Jiang Sheng. As for the black tortoise phantom, it finally swallowed up the scarlet river in the sky, turned into a jade pendant, and fell into Qin Yang's hand again. Amitabha. Thanks to the donor this time. The white-browed old monk had a bloody hole in his chest, but he still stood up and saluted Qin Yang. The Taoist in the 7-star robe and Jiang Sheng did the same. It's a pity for those two seniors. Qin Yang shook his head. We came to the desolate moon forbidden land, just to seek a glimmer of hope for the human race, and we have long looked down on life and death. The Taoist in the 7-star robe said lightly. That's right. Jiang Sheng nodded. They knew the dangers of the desolate moon forbidden land very well, but they came in to find the method of completing the forbidden technique of heaven and earth isolation left by the former desolate moon immortal. Only in this way can we prevent the great catastrophe of heaven and earth from happening. At this moment, King Niu also led everyone to fight in. When he saw the ruins of the temple, he was also shocked. This scene was as terrifying as the end of the world. Elder Shen, Situ Crossing and other Xianjianmen disciples saw the body of the old man with the sword on his back, and they were extremely sad, and knelt on the ground. The disciples of Zuxan Palace also saw the body of the middle-aged woman soon, and were also heartbroken. Chapter 355 Underground. After a brief moment of sadness, Situ Crossing and the others collected the body of the old man with the sword on his back. The same was true for the disciples of Zuxan Palace. Now was not the time to be sad. Although Zhang Yao was dead, the matter of the desolate moon temple had not been clarified. At this moment, a heroic and tall figure descended from the sky and appeared in front of everyone. I'm Sun Dinghu, the Lord of Deu. I'm honored to meet you all. Sun Dinghu clasped his fists and said, why, do you want to destroy us too? Qin Yang narrowed his eyes. Humph. Look at him like this. I can kill him with one axe. King Niu's eyes flashed with murderous light, and he snorted coldly. Don't misunderstand. I'm not here to fight. Sun Dinghu explained hurriedly. He saw how ferocious King Niu was just now. With his strength, he might be killed by the other party with one axe. Then tell me. Qin Yang asked. Everyone, our royal family has secretly investigated the matter of the desolate moon temple. We found that there is a temple hidden under the so-called desolate moon temple. Maybe it is related to what you are looking for. Sun Dinghu said in a deep voice. There is another temple under the temple. Qin Yang looked a little surprised. Sun Shahu, you said there is a temple under it. Why did you tell us? Aren't the people of your Deu country full of hostility towards us? Zhao Xinmo was a little suspicious. This person has misunderstood. Only the believers of the desolate moon temple are full of hostility towards you. Of course. Most of the people in Deu are believers of the desolate moon temple. But I'm not. Sun Dinghu, the king of a country, seemed unusually respectful in front of these people and explained. Then besides the secrets under this temple, what other secrets of the desolate moon temple do you know? Qin Yang asked softly. Without the desolate moon temple, outsiders are not allowed to enter. This secret was also found out by countless people in my royal family who died. Sunding, who shook his head. What do you want by suddenly coming here to tell us this? Qin Yang said softly. The Lord of Deu is naturally not a good person. He must have some ulterior motives to come here and say so much. Don't worry, I don't want anything. Now that the desolate moon temple has been destroyed, it is enough for us. Sunding, who said seriously. Really? Qin Yang looked at him for a few times and didn't ask any more questions. He probably understood what the Lord of Deu meant. Now the chief priest of the desolate moon temple has been killed by them. This means that Deu will usher in unprecedented changes. It may even allow Deu to break free from the cage and contact the outside world. The Lord of Deu just wants to make good friends with them first, so that he can get the most benefits in the future. Where is the temple under the desolate moon temple? Sunding who? Zhao Zinmo asked. It is in the hall that the Grand Temple Priest has been guarding. Every Grand Temple Priest must guard that hall and cannot leave even a step. Sunding who added. Not leaving even a step is interesting. Qin Yang smiled. He walked over and discussed with the Taoist in 7-star robe, the white-eyebrowed old monk, and Jiang Sheng. In the end, it was decided that the Taoist in 7-star robe would guard Sunding Hu to prevent him from doing anything. Qin Yang took King Niu, Zhao Zinmo, and Liu Yun to take a look at the bottom of the desolate moon temple. The main hall of the desolate moon temple had long been turned into ruins. He had just fought with the sect monster and had long left the previous location. It took Qin Yang some time to find it. Is there really a temple hidden under this ruin? Zhao Zinmo muttered. How do I know? Qin Yang couldn't say for sure. Then let's dig it up. It depends on the Taoist's methods. Zhao Zinmo said softly. He chanted a spell and urged his magic power. The next moment, the whole earth trembled. The broken stones kept gathering together to form 5 or 6 stone giants. These stone giants move clumsily, but they are very useful for digging things. They continued to dig along the area specified by Zhao Zinmo. When did you learn this trick? Qin Yang was a little surprised. The Taoist has thousands of tricks, and you don't know too much. Zhao Zinmo smiled proudly. This method of condensing stones into soldiers is actually a technique he separated from the magic array. These stone men can only be used to dig the soil and do not have strong combat capabilities. Qin Yang also took advantage of this time to continuously practice the Deadwood Immortal Sutra to recover from his injuries. After about an hour, Zhao Zinmo was surprised and said, it seems that we really dug something. Go down and take a look. Qin Yang, who was healing his injuries, suddenly opened his eyes. The stone men dug a dark and deep hole in the ruins, which was so deep that you couldn't see the bottom. Even Zhao Zinmo himself didn't know how deep they dug. Qin Yang went down first, followed by King Niu, and then Liu Yun and Zhao Zinmo. After sliding for about 100 meters in this dark deep hole, Qin Yang finally reached the bottom. Qin Yang frowned slightly. More than 100 meters below the hole, there is actually a hollow area. A dark ancient hall appeared in Qin Yang's eyes. There really is a hall. Zhao Zinmo muttered. Why do I feel that the desolate moon temple above is to suppress this ancient hall? Liu Yun thought for a moment. Not necessarily to suppress it. Let's go in and take a look. Qin Yang said in a deep voice. When they stepped into the ancient hall, their faces immediately became alert. A deformed black stone lay quietly in the hall. Around this black stone, there was a circle of moon-white stones. This should be a seal formation. Zhao Zinmo, who knew the formation best, said softly. Seal formation. What is this black stone? Qin Yang frowned. It's not clear at the moment. You can see that these moon-white stones on the ground should be star stones, which were picked from the stars. But after the end of the mythological era, the immortals and Buddhas perished, and no one could fly out of the sky and take the star stones. We can only collect some meteorites that fell to the sky by themselves. Zhao Zinmo introduced. Starstone. So, this stone should be the seed of the underworld. Qin Yang said calmly. Why? Zhao Zinmo asked in confusion. Nonsense. This formation method is only used by our human race. In ancient times, the only person who could collect starstones from the sky should be Huang Yuxin. What else could Huang Yuxin have to set up a formation to seal it, except the seed of the underworld? Qin Yang said calmly. So we are really wrong? That sect monster is right. This seed of the underworld is really sealed. Is the statue above also suppressing this seed of the underworld? King Neo hesitated. That sect monster has strange methods. Why do you think it is a ghost seed? I think there is another hidden story. Qin Yang said calmly. I think so too. We should not touch these starstones for now, to avoid triggering the formation. Zhao Zinmo said. Chapter 356 Information. That's it. Qin Yang, King Neo, and Liu Yun stayed a few meters away, watching Zhao Zinmo approach the starstone formation alone. Zhao Zinmo was also very interested in these starstone formations. He didn't know where he took out a piece of paper and wanted to record it. But when he was halfway through writing, the paper suddenly burned up. What's going on? Qin Yang asked curiously. He didn't feel any spiritual fluctuations just now. Why did the paper burn strangely? I don't know. I just recorded the arrangement of these starstones. I want to learn it secretly. I didn't expect that the paper would burn up halfway through recording. Zhao Zinmo didn't understand the situation. This paper can't bear this seal formation. Liu Yun said softly. It can't bear it. Zhao Zinmo thought about it when he heard this. These stones seem to be placed casually and simply, but I can't remember them in my mind at all. Liu Yun said in a deep voice. Qin Yang heard this and wanted to try to remember the arrangement of the stones. As expected, as Liu Yun said, he couldn't remember it at all. If you remember the latter, you will forget the former. Then when you recall the previous, the following content will also be forgotten. In this way, all the arrangements of the starstones will be completely forgotten. This formation is close to the Tao. That's why it's hard to leave any traces. Zhao Zinmo understood. The so-called Tao is the way of heaven. It has been mentioned in some classics. To become an immortal, one must comprehend a way of heaven. It seems that this starstone formation may really be set up by Huang Yuxin. Liu Yun said. Puff. At this time, King Neo suddenly vomited a large mouthful of blood. Old Niu, what did you do? No one attacked you. Zhao Zinmo was startled and asked anxiously. No. I just want to remember the arrangement of the stones. But I can't remember it, no matter how hard I try, and then my mind is very confused, and it hurts more and more, and then I vomit blood. King Neo hit his head twice with his fist, as if this would make him feel better. Don't look at it. This is not your job. Qin Yang said speechlessly. What a stubborn bull. Zhao Zinmo also shook his head. After the incident, the group was about to study the formation again. Suddenly, the starstones began to tremble, and then emitted brilliant light. An illusory light and shadow outline appeared in their eyes. The light and shadow outline was blue-white, and vaguely formed a human figure. The light and shadow seemed to want to convey some message, but as if it was disturbed by something, the light and shadow kept distorting. After a few seconds, the light and shadow suddenly disappeared. What do you mean? Qin Yang frowned slightly. I received some information. Zhao Zinmo suddenly said. He is a spiritual master, and a spiritual master who specializes in studying talisman formations. His soul perception is very sharp. What information? Qin Yang asked. This starstone formation is indeed the work of Huang Yuxin. After defeating the leader of the Mingxian sect, Huang Yuxin was also seriously injured, and was about to die. And the leader of the Mingxian sect turned into a dark seed. In order to prevent the dark seed from harming the people again, Huang Yuxin set up this starlight annihilation formation, hoping to wipe it out. However, this dark seed secretly left a trace of polluted blood. This trace of polluted blood later turned into a great temple priest, deceiving the creatures trapped in the Mingxian sect. These creatures gradually multiplied, and formed the Dao Kingdom. The power of this great temple priest cannot get close to the starlight annihilation formation. He can only continuously collect the power of faith, incense, and then continuously transmit it to the dark seed, to protect it from being wiped out by the starlight annihilation formation. After countless years, the power of the starlight annihilation formation has gradually weakened, but the dark seed is still intact. Zhao Zinmo sighed. After hearing what he said, Qin Yang and others finally understood. So once the power of the starlight annihilation formation is completely dissipated, will the nether seed possibly revive again? Qin Yang asked. Very likely, but the message I just received contains the starlight annihilation formation. If I am given some time, maybe I can repair it. Zhao Zinmo said seriously. This is the formation set up by the Wild Moon Immortal. If he can really repair it successfully, it will also be a huge benefit to him. In that case, let's go back first. Of course, this kind of thing needs to be discussed with the White Eyebrow Monk and others. I'll stay here. Liu Yun was worried. Okay. Qin Yang nodded. He, King Niu and Zhao Zinmo returned along the original route and told the White Eyebrow Monk and others about the situation. After some discussion, they decided to report this news back to their respective sects. Dear donors, in addition to this, what other information did the Wild Moon Immortal leave behind? Has the method of completing the separation of heaven and earth been mentioned? The White Eyebrow Monk asked. They entered the Wild Moon Forbidden Land to find a way to complete the forbidden technique of separating heaven and earth. Yes, Zhao Zinmo said with a bitter smile, but you may be disappointed. At that time, the Desolate Moon Immortal used her own immortal body to complete the forbidden art of isolating the world. But if the forbidden art of isolating the world fails, it means that the forbidden art is already riddled with holes, and even if there is another strong person in the realm of immortals, it cannot be completed. The white-browed old monk clasped his hands together and said, it seems that this calamity cannot be escaped after all. With the revival of spiritual energy and the emergence of another immortal, it may be possible. But the forbidden art of isolating the world was set up by countless immortals and Buddhas in the mythological era. Unless the immortals and Buddhas of the mythological era appear again, we can only wait for the ghosts to descend from the void. She also left a message, Zhao Zinmo added. The Taoist in the 7-star Obe asked, what did she say? Everything must be faced in the end. Zhao Zinmo paused for a word. After this, everyone present fell silent. After a long time, the white-browed old monk sighed and said, maybe the Desolate Moon Immortal is right. With the death of the great temple keeper, the Desolate Moon Forbidden Land was not as terrifying as before. The living people were finally able to walk out of the Desolate Moon Forbidden Land. The people of Dao country were all dispersed to the headquarters of the major sects. Many holy places also sent people to guard the dark seed. At the same time, they were also cooperating with Zhao Zinmo to repair the Starlight Annihilation formation. Otherwise, once the dark seed appeared, I'm afraid that no one in the world today could stop it. And with the exploration of the major sects, various inheritances continue to appear in the Desolate Moon Forbidden Land, allowing many geniuses to emerge. Qin Yang and King Niu returned to Wangai City and resumed their previous days of cultivation. 3 months passed in a blink of an eye. Deep in the Desolate Moon Forbidden Land, boom. A white-robed figure exuding death suddenly walked out of a ruin. Finally walked out. The white-robed figure looked at the ruins behind him, and helplessness flashed in his eyes. He originally wanted to enter the Desolate Moon Forbidden Land to find opportunities, but he didn't expect to be trapped in this ghost place for so long. I don't know what happened during this period of time. Go out and take a look first. The white-robed figure suddenly disappeared in the ruins. Chapter 357, Home. In a private house in Wangai City, several mysterious black-robed figures were talking. Bai Yanluo has been in there for so long, and hasn't come out yet. Could it be that something really happened in the Forbidden Land of Desolate Moon? We have been looking for it in the Forbidden Land of Desolate Moon for so long, and haven't found it. It's possible. Let's report this to Bai Yanluo first. He has been urging us. Just when the black-robed figures reached a consensus, a mysterious man in a white robe appeared in the room like a ghost. At first, the black-robed figures thought they had seen a ghost. After confirming it again and again, they hurriedly saluted. Greetings, Bai Yanluo. I heard what you said just now. These days, I have been trapped deep in the Forbidden Land of Desolate Moon and cannot get out. Bai Yanluo explained. After hearing this, several black-robed figures suddenly realized. By the way, there seem to be many more people in the Forbidden Land of Desolate Moon these days. What's going on? Bai Yanluo asked softly. Reporting to Bai Yanluo, the Desolate Moon Forbidden Land is no longer as dangerous as before, and all sects and schools have taken it as a place for training. A subordinate told the changes in the Desolate Moon Forbidden Land in recent days. No wonder. Besides that, is there any other news? Bai Yanluo asked. Bei Yanluo, the person that Dao Yanluo asked you to deal with before has been found. The black-robed figure clasped his fists and said, "Is it the immortal Buddha bloodline?" Bei Yanluo remembered this incident. Yes, it's Qin Yang who killed the Thunder Demon sect leader Fan Zuanlei. According to our recent clues, he is practicing in a dense forest outside Huangailu City. The black-robed figure whispered. What a coincidence. Bei Yanluo's eyes began to flash with a cold light. He has been trapped in the desolate moon forbidden land for so long, and he has been holding back a fire of evil in his heart. Now that he heard this news, he naturally couldn't bear it anymore. In that case, let's take care of this immortal Buddha bloodline. Who told this kid to be so unlucky that he met me? Bei Yanluo sneered. There is a small house in the forest in a deserted forest outside the city of Huangailu. Today's weather is particularly sunny, and a ray of sunlight shines through the woods and falls on the yard. A figure sits cross-legged in the yard, but his breath is almost gone, like a dead tree. This figure seems to be absorbing the sunlight and trying to rejuvenate. This is a little secret Qin Yang discovered. He found that, when he practiced the Deadwood Immortal Sutra, in addition to the nourishment of Bidao Zenwu's vitality, absorbing sunlight can also increase speed. Suddenly, a strange black cloud covered the clear sky. In the dense forest, a gust of gloomy wind suddenly blew. Many strange and gloomy sounds appeared. It was like the roar of evil spirits, and it was like the crying of wronged souls. In an instant, this dense forest seemed to become as terrifying as purgatory. But Qin Yang seemed not to notice it, and was still practicing with his eyes closed. This calmness is rare. A gloomy and strange figure in a white robe appeared in front of the courtyard, looking at Qin Yang and said lightly, "Who are you?" Qin Yang opened his eyes and asked in confusion. He should have never seen this figure in a white robe. "I'm Bei Yanluo, one of the 4 Yanluo in Yanluo Tower," Bei Yanluo said lightly. He knew that, as long as he said his name, the other party would naturally be afraid and frightened. This name is too terrifying in Chai Feng continent. Once it appears, it not only means death, but also pain and wailing. Bei Yanluo? I haven't heard of it. Why did you come to find me? Qin Yang asked in some surprise. He knew very little about the sects and forces in Chai Feng continent. Apart from the sects of several holy places, he hardly knew any forces. He really had never heard of this Yanluo Tower. Humph, what are you pretending to be? Even if you are from the outside continent, it has been so long now, how could you not know Yanluo Tower? Bei Yanluo felt that Qin Yang was teasing him, and his eyes became more and more sinister. He came here this time, just to find a punching bag. Unexpectedly, he was the one being teased. I really don't know him. Tell me, why did you come to me? Qin Yang was a little helpless. Could it be that this guy couldn't understand what he was saying? I came here this time to borrow the immortal Buddha blood in your body. Bei Yanluo narrowed his eyes. He didn't want to waste time talking to Qin Yang. He wanted to torture this guy severely, skin him and pull out his tendons, but not let him die. I don't have the immortal Buddha blood in my body, but I do have the monster blood. Qin Yang said softly. What monster blood? You, go to hell. Bei Yanluo was so angry that he was about to attack. I didn't tell you, if I wanted to fight him first. Qin Yang pointed outside the courtyard. Bei Yanluo looked back and saw a burly young man with horns on his head and a black stone axe on his back walked in. It's just right, Grandpa Niu. I haven't had a fight for a long time. King Niu's eyes became excited when he heard that there was a fight. Demon beast. Transformed? This trip is really worthwhile. In addition to the blood of immortals and Buddhas, there are also blood of demon beasts. Bei Yanluo grinned. The next moment, he stretched out his hand to grab King Niu. A huge ghost claw filled with death suddenly appeared and grabbed King Niu fiercely. The ghost claw was extremely fast, like white lightning. King Niu snorted coldly, exerted force with his legs, and slammed forward with his right shoulder like a wild bull. Bang! The ghost claw was instantly smashed by King Niu. The next moment, King Niu suddenly pulled out the black stone axe, and with the terrible power of chopping off the mountains, he chopped it out fiercely. Puff! Bei Yanluo didn't expect Qin Yang to burst out at such a speed. The whole person was instantly cut into 2 pieces, and then turned into white gas and dissipated. If you don't destroy my courtyard, when you go over, you can fix it for me. Qin Yang said lightly. I'm not that stupid. King Niu laughed, rushed out with a stone axe, and looked for the trace of Bai Yanluo. Boom. Soon, a terrible battle broke out between the two sides in the dense forest. Bai Yanluo's strength is indeed not weak. His cultivation has reached the realm of Darmak, a martial saint. He fully mobilized the power in his body, as if he had turned into a terrible ghost king, with a sinister aura, as if he could control life and death. King Niu's cultivation itself is equivalent to that of a sensing martial saint. It's just that the blood of the demon clan is really terrible, and the black stone axe is extremely fierce, constantly scratching terrible scars on Bai Yanluo. However, King Niu was also scarred, with terrible blood marks on his body from being scratched by ghost claws, deep enough to see the bones. Master, I can't beat this guy. King Niu was fighting, and suddenly he dodged, and ran to Qin Yang's side. You two will die today. Bai Yanluo's sinister and fierce voice came. The next moment, a ghost figure 5 or 6 meters tall appeared in front of the courtyard, and pounced on the two. Qin Yang stood up, and threw a punch in a nonchalant manner. In an instant, the world was silent. The void was like a mirror, with dense cracks appearing. Even the ghost figure of Bai Yanluo was frozen in midair. Then, a breeze blew by. The terrifying ghost figure turned into countless dust, and dissipated between heaven and earth. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 358 Return. Seeing this scene, King Niu couldn't help swallowing his saliva. Master's power is getting more and more domineering. If you hit me with this punch, I'm afraid that old Niu can't withstand it. Qin Yang didn't care too much, and said to himself, speaking of which, I shouldn't have offended this Yamata. King Niu grinned and said, just now they talked about immortal blood and monster blood. Maybe they came for the master's blood. In his heart, Qin Yang must have immortal blood. Why are you learning Zao's Inmo's tricks? I've said it many times. I don't have immortal blood. Qin Yang shook his head. Old Niu understands. King Niu smiled. Well, so many people came to see me today. Qin Yang suddenly looked into the distance. I saw a figure walking slowly in. Hey, such a strong aura. Did a fight happen just now? A Taoist wearing a 7-star robe walked out of the dense forest. This Taoist was the one who had entered the desolate moon forbidden land with Qin Yang before. His Taoist name was Xuanxingzi. No, I was just sparring with King Niu. Qin Yang said with a smile. I see. Brother Qin, I came here this time to discuss something important with you. Xuanxingzi said seriously. Master, please go ahead. Qin Yang nodded. Seeing this scene, King Niu also walked away tactfully. The two sat down at the stone table in the courtyard. Brother Qin, the Starlight Annihilation Formation has been blocked by several of our major holy places. Zhao Xinmo is also studying the Starlight Annihilation Formation. I believe that the Starlight Annihilation Formation will be restarted soon. Xuanxingzi talked about some of the situations in the desolate moon forbidden land. Well, Zhao Xinmo is finally of some use. Qin Yang said with a smile. Besides that, we have another plan. Xuanxingzi said seriously. Qin Yang knew that this was the reason why Xuanxingzi came to him, and said with a smile, I'm all ears. Now that the forbidden art of isolating the heaven and earth is becoming increasingly ineffective, it will take at most 5 years before the void ghost seed can descend at will. The arrival of the void ghost seed affects all the creatures in this Kangming world, not just Arshai and Feng continent. Xuanxingzi said in a deep voice. Kangming world is the name of the world Qin Yang lives in. This saying is said to have been circulated since the mythological period. So, what does Taoist Xuanxingzi want me to do? Qin Yang asked seriously. We have discussed with several holy places that we need to unite the forces of various continents to have a glimmer of hope. But the continents are far apart, which is extremely inconvenient. The only way is to build a Qiankan teleportation array. Xuanxingzi said. Teleportation array? Is it a formation that can teleport to any place at will? Qin Yang didn't expect there was such a thing. It's not that convenient. My 7 stars sect has a piece of Qiankan stone, which needs to be used as a base point. For example, if you Brother Qin, build a teleportation array on Kunshan continent and then enter it. You will be teleported to the vicinity of the Qin stone of my 7 stars sect. Zuan Xingzi explained. After he said this, Qin Yang understood. Master, I roughly understand what you mean. I'm a martial artist, and I don't know how to set up a teleportation array. Qin Yang scratched his head and said, Brother Qin, don't worry, this is the array chart of the teleportation array. You only need to give it to a Yuanshan spiritual master, and he will know how to set it up. In addition, this is a Qin stone, which was stripped from the big Qin stone of our 7 stars sect. Only with it can we build a teleportation array. Zuan Xingzi took out a book and a black stone. Okay. It just so happens that I haven't been back for a long time. Qin Yang nodded. Then I'll leave it to Brother Qin. Zuan Xingzi clasped his fists. The two discussed for a while, and then Zuan Xingzi clasped his fists and left. King Niu, do you want to stay here, or come back to Kunshan continent with me? Qin Yang asked. Master, I want to go to Dingshan continent. That's my ancestral land. I want to go back and take a look. King Niu scratched his head and said embarrassedly. That's fine. Dingshan continent is full of monsters and beasts, and your few axes may not be able to stop them. Remember to be careful. Qin Yang smiled. Master, don't worry. Old Niu will never embarrass you. King Niu said loudly. Then I will go find Zuan Xingzi again. If you have the chance, also build a teleportation array in Dingshan. Qin Yang said softly. That's fine. King Niu nodded. Before Zuan Xingzi left far, Qin Yang quickly found him back. Hearing that King Niu was going to Dingshan continent, Zuan Xingzi was also very happy and said, I was worried about how to send people to Dingshan continent. Since Brother Niu is willing, it can't be better. He immediately contacted the people of the 7 star sect and asked them to send another piece of Qin stone. 3 days later, Qin Yang left Wanggao City alone. Zhao Xinmo wanted to study the Starlight Annihilation Formation, Liu Yun wanted to retreat to improve his strength, and King Niu also went to Dingshan continent. Everyone has his own goals, and Qin Yang also returned to Kunshan continent. At his current speed, he arrived at Dapeng City in half a month. This is the first city he came to Xianfeng continent. In a blink of an eye, more than a year has passed. Qin Yang didn't expect that the ironclad ship was still in the port. He jumped onto the deck. The old Captain Sun Fang happened to be on the deck. When he saw someone suddenly jump up, he was also shocked. After seeing the name Qin Yang, he was extremely happy. Qinza, you are finally back. Haha, I didn't expect you to be here. Qin Yang sighed slightly. It's hard for us to go back if you're not here. Several people got married and had children here. Sun Fang shook his head. What about you? Are you planning to go back with me? Qin Yang asked. Returning to the roots. At my age, I naturally want to be buried in Kunshan continent. Sun Fang laughed. That's enough. Go and ask who is willing to go back with me. If you don't want to go back, forget it. Qin Yang said softly. Understood. Sun Fang was extremely excited. 1 day later, the ironclad ship set sail and headed back to Kunshan continent. These days, the risks at sea are getting bigger and bigger. If you weren't here, I guess no one would dare to go out to sea. Sun Fang stood on the deck, looking at the boundless sea, and said softly, even the sea is affected. Qin Yang was surprised. He knew that the Xianfeng continent was now suffering from the impact of the arrival of ghost weapons. But the sea should not be affected. Qinzai doesn't know. Ghost weapons keep coming, and even this sea area keeps seeing legends of some terrifying ghost ships. There are also some terrible sea beasts. Once they go out, almost no ship can come back alive. Sun Fang explained. Like this, Qin Yang thought. Boom. The next moment, the ironclad ship shook violently. It was as if some terrifying giant was sitting deep in the sea. What a bad mouth I have. Just as I said. Sun Fang smiled bitterly. Chapter 359. Things have changed. Boom. The ironclad ship shook violently again. Many crew members were frightened. However, they knew Qin Yang was on the ship, so they were still calm. Qin Yang stood on the railing and looked down. A huge black shadow could be vaguely seen on the sea. He twisted his wrist and hit the huge black shadow in the air. Bang! A violent fist force suddenly formed, as if a god swung a sledgehammer and smashed into the water. Boom! The scarlet blood instantly dyed the entire sea red. This Sun Fang didn't even see the appearance of the sea beast, and the battle was over. He was horrified. He knew that Qin Yang might have made another breakthrough during his absence. Seeing Qin Yang's terrible performance, the crew members finally let go of their uneasy hearts. Qin Yang's punch this time was to let everyone know his strength, so that they could sail with peace of mind. The days that followed returned to being boring. Qin Yang usually hides in the room to practice Bidao Zen Wuzhu and Gong and Qmu Bu Sijing. He wants to break through to Tongshan Wusheng as soon as possible. You know, when the real ghost species descends, no one can compete with it without a strong man. However, Qin Yang imagined that with his own magical powers, as long as he breaks through to Tongshan Wusheng, it should not be a problem to deal with a ghost species. However, Qin Yang also realized the horror of sailing now. Every 3 or 4 days, he will encounter attacks by sea beasts. If he is not in charge, this ironclad ship will not know how many times it will capsize. 3 months later, the ironclad ship arrived at Heilong Gorge. Heilong Gorge, which was once bustling and orderly, is now in ruins. Even the port has been abandoned. It seems that no one has been there for a long time. Now that there are no ships passing through the sea, Heilong Gorge naturally has no meaning to exist. I heard that the old whale king He Kangshan took the black whale pirates to other continents. Sun Fang still knows some news about the sea. The black whale pirates left, and there are no pirates occupying it. The location of Heilong Gorge is still good. Qin Yang asked. Sir, there are no pirates now. The pirates were eaten by sea beasts a long time ago. Sun Fang smiled bitterly. That's right. Qin Yang thought of what he had experienced these days and shook his head slightly. He looked at the dilapidated and damp abandoned dock and remembered the lively scene when he came here before. He was filled with emotion. The revival of spiritual energy has indeed changed many things. I wonder what Kunshan continent will look like next. Sun Fang found an abandoned dock at random, spent a few days repairing the ironclad ship, and then set off again. In a blink of an eye, another 2 months passed. Wu Jilingti Sutra, 9 layers, 9999/10,000. After these days of hard training at sea, Qin Yang finally cultivated the Wu Jilingti Sutra to perfection. He closed his eyes, and his blood and ki began to circulate mightily. After an incense stick, a mysterious breath spread from Qin Yang's body. Wu Jilingti Sutra, so far cultivated to perfection. But he had a strange feeling. The blood and ki in his body hooked out a mysterious and unknown rune. This blood and ki rune has traces of the Yin Yang talisman and the mystery of the Wu Jiling talisman. It seems that the two talismans are fused together. Qin Yang looked at the panel of the Wu Jilingti Sutra. Wu Ji Yin Yang talisman, Wu Ji Hunian, the mystery of yin and yang, indestructible. Qin Yang pondered for a while and knew the wonderful use of this Wu Ji Yin Yang talisman. As long as he activated the Wu Ji Yin Yang divine talisman, Wu Jiling Guan would form on the surface of his body. As long as he did not break it, he would not be hurt. So powerful. Qin Yang wanted to try how strong the defense of this Wu Ji Yin Yang talisman was, but now he could not find anyone to practice on the ironclad ship, so he had to give up. Continue to practice. The Wu Jilingti Sutra is complete, but he still has Bidao Zen Wuzhu and Jing and Qmu Bu Sijing to practice. After calming his mind, Qin Yang entered the state of practice again. A month later. Host, Qin Yang Bidao Zen Wuzhu and Gong, 14th level, 1299/20,000. Supernatural power, overturning the sea and river Deadwood Immortal Sutra, 9th level, 5631/10,000. Dragon. Subduing fist, perfect supernatural power, 1 dragon's power Wu Jilingti Sutra, perfect supernatural power, Yin and Yang Wu Ji Desolate Sea 9 swords, perfect supernatural power, meaning of desolation Kuangloibu, perfect supernatural power, Thunderbolt. Qin Yang stood on the deck, looking at his proficiency panel. After the Wu Jilingti Sutra broke through to perfection, his Bidao Zen Wuzhu and Sutra also broke through to the 14th level. Even the Deadwood Immortal Sutra reached the 9th level. Kuangloibu also reached perfection and obtained the Thunderbolt Force supernatural power, which can instantly increase explosive power. The same is true for the Desolate Sea 9 swords. The desolate meaning he formed is to annihilate all life and turn it into desolation. "Sir, are we going to stop at Xingluo Hazhao or go directly to Bai City?" Sun Fang stepped forward at this time and asked in a low voice. Bai City. Qin Yang didn't want to waste time. He had to choose a location as soon as possible and then find a spiritual master to set up the Qiankan formation. Understood. Sun Fang nodded. Half a month later, the ironclad ship docked at a port in Bai City. Old Sun Ha left a trace of Qi on the ship, and ordinary sea beasts won't dare to provoke it. You should be able to return to Tibing Island safely along the original route. Qin Yang said softly. Hero Qin, see you later. Sun Fang and others clasped their fists. They knew in their hearts that this should be the last time they met. Haha. Goodbye. Qin Yang laughed loudly and then jumped up from the deck of the ironclad ship and landed on the dock. The ironclad ship quickly turned around and headed towards Tibing Island. After the ironclad ship disappeared, Qin Yang walked towards Bai City. Like the Sea Dragon Canyon, the Bai's wharf has actually been almost abandoned. There were many large ships docked at the pier, but now they were all covered with barnacles and seaweed, and it was obvious that they had not been in operation for a long time. If you encounter danger on land, you can still escape. If you encounter those terrible sea beasts in the ocean, you will die. When Qin Yang entered Bai City, he found that many people were leaving with their families, as if they were fleeing. My dear, what happened in Bai City? Qin Yang stopped an old man in his 60s and asked in a low voice. The old man leaned on a cane, glanced at Qin Yang, and said anxiously, young man, a high-level ghost weapon has descended in Bai City. You must not go to die. High-level ghost weapon? Qin Yang's tone was a little surprised. He was not surprised by the high-level ghost weapon. At this point in time, high-level ghost weapons can already descend at will. He was just surprised that an old man knew the existence of ghost weapons. Obviously, the matter of the void ghost species should not be a secret. Yes, it's all thanks to Boss Zhang who is suppressing it now. But that high-level ghost weapon can't suppress it. Run quickly. After the old man finished speaking, he hurried away, leaning on his crutches. Chapter 360 The Arrival of the Ghostly Weapon. A mansion in Bai City. With this mansion as the center, all the mansions within a radius of several miles were cleared out, just because a high-level ghost weapon appeared here. In this era, ghost weapons continue to appear, and it has long been known to the world. Before, Bai City was lucky enough to have the Shenhe gang in the city. Its leader Zhang Chen was quite powerful and could even deal with medium-level ghost weapons, which was considered to protect the peace of the area. But now a high-level ghost weapon has appeared, and even Zhang Chen said it was difficult to deal with it. Naturally, the people of Bai City were scared and fled frantically. Zhang Chen stood in front of the mansion with a solemn expression. He discovered that a high-level ghost weapon appeared in this mansion 5 days ago. The reason was that dozens of people in this mansion hanged themselves overnight. He had personally entered the mansion to check it out, but he couldn't even see what the ghost weapon looked like, and he was almost killed. In the end, he rushed out with a strong true key. After that, Zhang Chen never entered the mansion again, but sent people to disperse the nearby people and spread the news. Of course, he also uploaded this news to the patrol department of Kangshuzhou, hoping that they could send someone out. However, the situation is so chaotic now, Zhang Chen doesn't know if the patrol department can arrive in time, so he simply prepares for the worst and disperses the people first. Boss Zhang, most of the people in the city have left. A subordinate came to report. Well, is there any news from the patrol department? Zhang Chen asked softly. No one has come yet. The subordinate shook his head. In this case, let's prepare to retreat. If the patrol department doesn't come tomorrow, we will also retreat. Zhang Chen said in a deep voice. He knew that he could not compete with the high-level ghost weapon at all, and staying here would be like hitting a rock with an egg. I will arrange it now. The subordinate was obviously relieved. He was really afraid that Zhang Chen would take people in to die. Ha ha ha, Boss Zhang, am I not here? Suddenly, a burst of laughter came. Zhang Chen looked back and saw a figure sweeping across and landing in front of him. He was a rough and sturdy man with a thick beard, carrying a black iron stick on his back, and his aura was impressive. Meet Deputy Chief Li. Seeing this man, Zhang Chen clasped his fists and said. He had seen this man before. He was the deputy chief of Kangshu Prefecture, Li Tishi. Boss Zhang, after receiving your message, I rushed here immediately. Fortunately, the high-level ghost weapon has not yet completed its dormancy. Li Tishi looked at the depths of the mansion, feeling the twisted aura emanating from it, and said in a deep voice, "These days, the Sky Patrol Division has been fighting with ghost weapons, and has also figured out some rules. These ghost weapons, that descended from the void, need some time to adapt before they can expand. This period of time is called dormancy. Well, I think it will be these 2 days. If Deputy Chief Li doesn't come, I will take people away." Zhang Chen smiled bitterly. "Hahaha, then I will go in and subdue this high-level ghost weapon now." "Boss Zhang, do you want to come with us?" Li Tishi asked. "I have been in there once, just in time to lead the way for Deputy Chief Li." Zhang Chen nodded. The two of them immediately walked into the mansion without delay. As soon as they stepped in, it was as if they had stepped into a dark world. Even the sky turned grey and black, and everywhere was filled with a foul smell. Bang! Even the door of the mansion closed automatically. "When I first came here, it wasn't so fierce." Zhang Chen felt the aura emanating from the mansion and frowned. This shows that the hibernation of this high-level ghost weapon is indeed about to be completed. Li Tishi also looked solemn. He took off the black iron stick behind him, and Zhang Chen also took out his big knife. The two came to the middle of the yard. In the hall, there were dozens of hanged figures. These figures all had vicious faces, were full of rotten smell, and made some strange roars from their mouths. The next moment, the ropes tied to these corpses suddenly broke. Like beasts that broke free from their cages, these corpses rushed towards Zhang Chen and Li Tishi frantically. "Kill!" Zhang Chen and Li Tishi shouted at the same time, and killed these corpses. Zhang Chen was surrounded by a deep blue airflow, extremely cold and deep, and the big knife in his hand was like 1,000 waves, constantly slashing out. Li Tishi also swung the black iron stick, with a terrifying momentum, that swept through thousands of troops, and smashed the corpses one by one. After a dozen breaths, these corpses were swept away by the two. But both knew that this was just an appetizer. The high-level ghost weapons had not yet been used. Boom! Exclamation mark. The next moment, the lobby shook violently. A terrifying body of 5 or 6 meters tall walked out of the lobby. This was an extremely bloated fat man, with dense blood vessels drilling out of the surface of his skin, as if colorful poisonous snakes were wriggling and hissing. Disgusting, twisted and creepy. It seems that the high-level ghost weapon is parasitic on this fat man. Li Tishi whispered. "Boss Zhang, help me to clear the battle." He knew that Zhang Chen was only at the true gang realm, and he was good enough to deal with ordinary evil spirits. It would be very difficult to deal with high-level ghost weapons. A violent and hot breath rose from Li Tishi's body, causing his body to suddenly grow wildly, and the black iron stick burned with red flames. "Kill!" Li Tishi shouted, waving the fire stick, and poked at the fat figure like a fire dragon. Hiss! The fat man had a strange smile on his face, and colorful blood vessels rushed out wildly, bursting with scarlet blood. Clang clang clang, the two sides fought fiercely. Li Tishi's fire stick was extremely hot, burning the fat man's blood vessels into black. But the next moment, another blood vessel would extend out of the opponent's body, as if it was endless. This made Li Tishi know that he couldn't entangle anymore. He roared wildly, and the hot energy was poured into the iron stick. 9 yangs merge into one. The next moment, he hit 9 sticks in an instant. These 9 sticks instantly merged into a huge fire circle, and fell fiercely on the fat man. Zzzz, the fat man was burned, and black grease kept coming out, and his whole body trembled. Li Tishi saw the right time and hit the fat man's head fiercely. Bang! The brain burst and exploded instantly. Then, a large number of blood vessels gushed out of the fat man's body. These blood vessels were colorful and entangled together, like a huge mouth of flesh and blood, and they slammed into Li Tishi fiercely. Damn it! Li Tishi roared wildly, holding the black iron stick with both hands, and smashed it down fiercely. Bang! Li Tishi was knocked out. Puff! The fat man's head grew again. It showed a strange smile, and the blood vessels on its body whistled out again. Boss Zhang, leave quickly. This high-level ghost weapon is almost transformed into a ghost species. Go and report this news to the Kangshu Patrol Sky Division. Li Tishi roared, waving the black iron stick, and constantly resisting the attack. Chapter 361, Recruiting a Disciple. Seeing the bloodlight piercing Li Tishi's body, Zhang Chen's eyes flashed with hesitation. Zhang Chen, don't hesitate. Leave quickly while I can still stop this guy. Li Tishi roared wildly. Zhang Chen's eyes were full of struggle, but in the end he swung his knife to kill the fat man. Swish. His knife light was like a stream of water, and it suddenly cut through the fat man's head. But the next moment, many blood vessels emerged from the head and stabbed Zhang Chen frantically. Zhang Chen's wrist shook rapidly, slashing out dense knife lights, constantly breaking these blood vessels. Extreme cold aura continued to burst out from his body, as if endless, causing frost to appear on the fat man's body. But after all, his strength was still too weak. Bang! More than a dozen bloodlights suddenly pulled out and hit him hard. Zhang Chen wailed. His body was beaten to pieces, and even bones could be seen. He was beaten hard and flew out and hit hard into the wooden door. Bang! He was so dizzy that he couldn't even stand up. Puff! In a trance, Zhang Chen saw that Li Tishi's black iron stick was also whipped out, and his whole body was entangled with colorful blood vessels. Squeaky, the bones and muscles were squeaking. Li Tishi wailed wildly and was about to be squeezed into mincemeat. Cough cough cough. Zhang Chen coughed up blood and was about to do his best to make a final desperate struggle. Creaky. The closed wooden door was suddenly pushed open. A powerful figure walked in slowly. As soon as he came in, it was as if the whole world was frozen. Everything was frozen. Zhang Chen even felt that there was something wrong with his eyes, and his eyes were full of horror and ecstasy. The fat man even screamed in terror, and even put Li Tishi down, and turned around to escape. The figure waved his hand casually. A fierce platinum knife light instantly slashed out. The fat man was instantly cut in half. His body quickly melted and turned into countless colorful long bundles of living things, spreading wildly in all directions. But the platinum knife light did not disappear, but turned into a terrifying evil spirit, covering one side, and instantly crushed all the living things. One move solved a high-level ghost weapon. After Li Tishi landed, he ignored the pain in his body and looked at the figure at the door with horror. Who is this person? Exclamation mark. Master Qin. Zhang Chen was extremely excited when he saw the figure. I haven't seen you for more than a year. I didn't expect that you have become the leader of the gang. Qin Yang was also a little surprised. He didn't expect that the leader Zhang mentioned by others was Zhang Chen, whom he had met twice before. If it weren't for the help of the senior, I'm afraid I would still be a gangster now. Zhang Chen shook his head. You won't. Qin Yang felt a very special aura from Zhang Chen. I'm Li Tishi, the deputy chief of the Kangshu Patrol Department. Hello senior. Li Tishi heard the conversation between Zhang Chen and Qin Yang and knew that the two should know each other. But he couldn't lose his manners. I haven't heard the name Patrol Department for a long time. Qin Yang's eyes were dazed for a moment, but he didn't say much, just nodded. Now is not the time to talk. Now the high-level ghost weapon has been solved, but the people in the city have almost all left. Zhang Chen still needs to spread the news and let the people return. And Li Tishi didn't stay and said goodbye to Qin Yang. Don't you need to recuperate for a while? Qin Yang asked curiously. Li Tishi's injuries were not light. Even if he was a martial saint, he would probably need more than 10 days to recuperate. Recruiting while traveling can save some time. In today's world, there is no room for rest. Li Tishi sighed. Like this, Qin Yang thought for a while and waved his hand. A light green energy dissipated from his palm and fell on Li Tishi. Very quickly, the other party felt itchy all over his body and the wound was healing and recovering. Thank you senior. Li Tishi clasped his fists in thanks. Go. Qin Yang said no more. That night, Bei's City, Weihei Restaurant. This restaurant is 5 stories high, and you can see the sea view in the distance. Qin Yang and Zhang Chen sat on the 5th floor, drinking and looking into the distance. Zhang Chen told Qin Yang about his experiences in the past few days. After receiving the turtle snake art from Qin Yang, his cultivation improved by leaps and bounds. In just 1 year, he broke through to the real gang realm. After that, he became a member of the Shenhei gang, developed his power, and now has become a behemoth in Bei's City. Then where did you get the beaming black water scripture? Qin Yang asked curiously. The turtle snake art can only be practiced to the point of gathering ki, and it is impossible to practice to the real gang. and the aura that Zhang Chen exudes at this moment is clearly the beaming black water real gang. The government gave it to me. Now the government needs our gangs to suppress ghost weapons. As long as you want these martial arts secrets, they will give them. Zhang Chen smiled. Then why did you choose this one? Qin Yang asked again. I don't know, it's just my intuition. I picked this one for some reason. Zhang Chen explained. Interesting. You can reach the real gang realm in 1 year. You're faster than me. Qin Yang shook his head. How can I compare with Qin Zaya? Zhang Chen was still a little shocked when he thought of Qin Yang killing a high-level ghost weapon with one move today. After the real gang, you will be the martial saint. I'll give you a practice method. You should practice it well. Qin Yang thought about it and left Zhang Chen with the first 9 levels of Bidao Zen Wuzuanjing. Qin Zaya, I have a presumptuous request. Zhang Chen suddenly knelt on the ground. I have never accepted a disciple and I don't know how to teach a disciple. Qin Yang understood what Zhang Chen meant and shook his head. Then I, Zhang Chen, will become your first disciple. Zhang Chen's eyes were full of determination. Qin Yang stared at Zhang Chen for a while, laughed and said, okay, I will accept you as my disciple today. He suddenly remembered that he had another identity, that is, the leader of Zuanwu sect. As the leader of the sect, he naturally needs to consider the inheritance of the sect. But Qin Yang himself doesn't want to worry about these things. It's better to accept a disciple and let Zhang Chen worry about it. According to what Zhang Chen said just now, a Shenhe gang can be established within a year. Revitalizing the glory of Zuanwu sect may fall on Zhang Chen's shoulders. Meeting Master. Zhang Chen was overjoyed when he heard that Qin Yang was willing to accept him as a disciple and immediately kowtowed to him 3 times. Okay. From now on, you will be my founding disciple. Revitalizing the glory of Zuanwu sect depends on you. Qin Yang smiled. Zuanwu sect? Zhang Chen was stunned. I forgot to tell you. This Zuanwu sect is an ancient sect. After the battle of destroying the sky, the inheritance was cut off. Now I have inherited the Taoist tradition of Zuanwu sect, and you will be the eldest brother of Zuanwu sect in the future. Don't embarrass me. Qin Yang said seriously. The disciple will definitely not bring shame to the master. Zhang Chen was very serious. That's good, I believe you too. Qin Yang nodded. He also had the intention of becoming a master and began to guide Zhang Chen on some of his doubts about cultivation. Chapter 362 Old Friend. A few days later, Qin Yang left Bai City. With Zhang Chen's talent, a little guidance would be enough. If too much intervention is made, it will affect his future transformation. Because in the past few days, Qin Yang has been able to conclude that Zhang Chen is definitely the legendary immortal and Buddha bloodline. This is also the reason why his cultivation speed is so exaggerated and terrifying. Similar to King Niu, he is constantly breaking through with his bloodline. Of course, when leaving, Qin Yang also specifically told Zhang Chen that he could collect a few good seedlings to expand the Zuanwu sect. However, he required that the disciples admitted to the Zuanwu sect must have good talents, roots, and character. It is better to have nothing than to have something bad. After leaving Bai City, Qin Yang went to Yangning Prefecture. Yangning Prefecture was once captured by the Nandmang aliens, and Qin Yang was not very clear about what it looks like now. Half a month later, Qin Yang finally arrived at Yangning Prefecture. This once large city on the southern border is now in ruins. Countless buildings collapsed and turned into ruins. Even the city walls were broken by more than half, turning into broken tiles and broken walls. Even though Qin Yang came during the day, he could still see strange and ominous black and red blood floating above the Yangning's house city. Gone. Even though Qin Yang had already made some predictions in his heart, unexpectedly, the worst scenario still appeared in his eyes. Young man, what do you want to do? An old beggar suddenly crawled out from the corner of the city wall and waved anxiously at Qin Yang, as if to ask him to stop. Old man, what happened to Yangning City? Qin Yang stopped and asked softly. Dead. Everyone is dead. A high-level ghost weapon descended here, and everything is over. The old beggar sighed. How long did it happen? Qin Yang asked. It happened half a year ago. Young man, don't go in. The high-level ghost weapon is in the city. Crossing this city wall is equivalent to entering the gate of hell. The old beggar persuaded. Then why are you still here, when it is so dangerous here? Qin Yang asked. I don't know, I don't remember. I seem to wander here every day. The old beggar also looked puzzled. He found that he didn't remember anything. Old man, if you can't remember, then forget it. Have a good rest. Qin Yang didn't ask any more questions, but walked into the dilapidated Yang Ning's house city. This time, the old beggar didn't even stop Qin Yang and just let him walk into Yang Ning's house city. He stood there and talked to himself. I really can't remember it. Walking on the deserted and dilapidated streets, Qin Yang could still vaguely remember the lively and extraordinary scene in the past. But now it is a dilapidated and desolate place. It hurts so much. In the ruins of a collapsed building, a man's lower body was pressed inside the building, wailing wildly. When he saw Qin Yang, he immediately became excited. Brother, save me. Qin Yang squatted down and asked, how can I save you? Save me out. Please. It really hurts. The man begged Qin Yang. I know. Rest in peace. Qin Yang grabbed the man's head and squeezed it hard. Bang. The man instantly turned into a black gas and disappeared in the ruins. Qin Yang sighed helplessly and stood up. He didn't know how many such existences there were in the ruins of Yangning Prefecture. These were the resentments of the people who died tragically, which condensed and turned into evil spirits. Unconsciously, Qin Yang went in the direction of the patrol department. The former patrol department was the most severely damaged, as if some terrible war had taken place, turning it into a vast scorched earth and a dark ruin. I don't know how Leng Kang is doing. Qin Yang thought of this good friend. Since Song Yechen's death, Leng Kang has served as the head of the Yangning Patrol Department and has been struggling to support it. Judging from the current situation of the patrol department, Qin Yang did not hold out hope. Kill. Suddenly, he heard a shout of killing from the depths of the patrol department ruins. When Qin Yang arrived, he saw a burly figure fighting with several dark ghosts. The burly figure waved his fists with the power to shake the mountains, and the momentum was amazing, blasting away the dark ghosts one by one. Soon, all these dark ghosts were killed by the burly figure with one punch. Leng Kang was about to relax when he heard footsteps behind him. He looked back vigilantly. He saw a figure standing in the ruins, looking at him with a smile. Qin Yang, why are you back? Leng Kang was a little surprised. I just happened to pass by Yangning's house city and came to see. I didn't expect it to become like this now. Qin Yang shook his head. It's because I, the head of the department, didn't do a good job and everything is ruined. Leng Kang sighed. No, you did a good enough. Let's go have a drink. Qin Yang smiled. Let's go. Leng Kang seemed very happy to see his old friend again. The two left the ruins of the Zunshan division and came to a collapsed wine shop according to their memories of the past. After Qin Yang cleared the ruins of the wine shop, he dug out several jars of wine deep underground. Generally, wine shops have a cellar where good wine is stored. Now it is naturally cheap for Qin Yang and Leng Kang. The two sat in a dilapidated ruin and drank wine. This wine is good. Qin Yang took a big gulp. I guess the owner of this wine shop has been hiding it for many years. Leng Kang also drank. Qin Yang, you have been to Xianfeng continent these days. You should have made some achievements, right? Leng Kang asked. Some achievements. I killed many martial saints and learned many ancient secrets. Qin Yang quietly recounted his experience of going to Xianfeng continent. Leng Kang was listening on the side. From Qin Yang's words, he could feel the thrilling feeling. After listening, Leng Kang couldn't help but sighed. Sure enough, you should go to Xianfeng continent, which is the most suitable place for you. Qin Yang smiled. This time I came back to build a teleportation array so that Xianfeng continent and Kunshan continent can establish a connection. Leng Kang nodded. Now that the forbidden technique of isolating the world has failed, the ghost species of the void are constantly descending, and it is indeed necessary to gather the power of all continents, just like the battle of destroying the sky you mentioned. What about you? What did you experience in Yangning's house city after I left? Qin Yang asked curiously. I'm still fighting ghost weapons like before. In this constant fighting, I actually broke through to the martial saint. But I didn't expect that a high-level ghost weapon quietly descended on the Nandmang aliens and finished its dormancy. After that, this high-level ghost weapon contaminated those Nandmang aliens and came to Yangning Prefecture. And Yangning Prefecture city has become what it is now. Leng Kang showed a guilty look. Leng Xixiao, you did a good enough. No one can do better than you, Qin Yang said seriously. Chapter 363 Passing. Really? Len Kang scratched his head and took another sip of wine. The two chatted casually. After dark, there were more than a dozen wine jars on the ground. Let's go. Qin Yang stood up. Where to? Len Kang asked. To fulfill your regret. Qin Yang smiled. My regret? Len Kang nodded. He took Qin Yang to another place in Yangning's house city. After dark, more and more ghosts appeared on the street. Len Kang had long been accustomed to it, swinging his iron fist and constantly killing them. Is this how you get through these days? Qin Yang asked. Even if you can't beat that ghost weapon, you can still deal with these evil spirits. Len Kang smiled. Well, no wonder the power of this ghost weapon has not been contaminated. Qin Yang also smiled, but there was a hint of gloom in the depths of his smile. Soon, the two came to the most prosperous place in Yangning's house city in the past. This place used to be where the major families lived, but now it has become a dead place. Countless black fogs enveloped the area, and some strange hissing sounds could be vaguely heard. As if sensing Len Kang's arrival, the rolling black fog began to boil. Qin Yang, however, was not afraid at all, and walked directly into the place where the black fog rolled. Among the countless collapsed ruins, there was a huge and strange black snake entwined. Before, this black snake was just a totem, but now it has almost turned into a corpse. Len Kang looked at the huge and gloomy black snake with a solemn expression. This high-level ghost weapon has absorbed too much blood and essence, and it is about to transform into a ghost species. Qin Yang said in a deep voice. Is it okay? Len Kang asked. Of course it's okay. Even if it is a real ghost species, I don't know how many I have killed. Qin Yang grinned. At this time, the black snake in the distance suddenly raised its head. Its head had a pair of flesh wings, which fluttered wildly, driving its huge body to fly up. At this time, Qin Yang saw that the abdomen of this huge black snake actually had dense claws, just like a centipede. This ghost species is really deformed. Qin Yang shook his head. The next moment, he suddenly activated the power of the Dharma body. A deep and extremely cold breath suddenly spread, as if freezing the world. Qin Yang's physique swelled, and the Bidao Zenwu Yuan Qi wrapped around his body. The shadow of Zuan appeared behind him, with terrible divine power. The next moment, the Zuan Wu knife appeared in Qin Yang's hand. Looking at the huge black snake that pounced on him, Qin Yang roared. Len Kang, this knife will cut it for you. The next moment, a deep blue knife light hundreds of meters long slashed out. The terrible and deep desolate death intention spread between heaven and earth. Everything seemed to have returned to the desolate period without any life. This is the meaning of desolation. Let everything return to death. Puff. The knife light fell on the black snake's head. The huge and terrifying body was cut into two halves by the knife light. But after landing, the two halves of the body turned into a terrifying black snake each. But the size was much smaller than before. The two black snakes were entangled together, attacking Qin Yang from both sides. Qin Yang looked cold and fierce, waving the Zuan Wu knife to fight with them. With his magical powers, he used the terrifying power of the 9 swords of the Wild Sea, all of which contained various extreme murderous intentions, as if he wanted to chop the sky into pieces. The two black snakes were no match at all, and were soon cut into 7 or 8 pieces by Qin Yang. But the vitality of these black snakes was indeed extremely tenacious, and they were still constantly differentiating. From 2 to more than 10, then dozens, and finally evolved into more than a few thousand, and even reached tens of thousands. This area seemed to have become a gloomy snake cave, full of black snakes everywhere. Even the void was filled. Qin Yang didn't care, still waving the Zuan Wu knife, killing a large number of black snakes. This high-level ghost weapon is indeed more difficult to deal with than the one in Bai City. After all, the one in Bai City has not even completed its dormancy. But the one in Yangning's house city has already completed its dormancy and has absorbed a lot of life essence and blood and is even transforming into a ghost species. But after all, he did not completely transform, and his power did not reach the extreme. Desolate sea floating in the Dead Sea. Desolate sea blood sea of Shura. Desolate sea roaring in the raging sea. Qin Yang was fully demonstrating the mystery of the desolate sea 9 swords. Len Kang was watching from the side, his eyes full of enjoyment. Even if he did not use a sword, he could see that this sword technique was exquisite and peerless. This was already close to the tower. If a swordsman saw this kind of sword technique, he would have no regrets in his life. Moreover, Leng Kang could also feel the endless desolation gradually spreading throughout the void. Even the unique twisted and gloomy aura of the ghost species was gradually eroded by the desolate aura. Hiss, countless roars sounded. The black snake seemed to sense some crisis and merged into a terrifying black snake again. The black snake floated in the void, suddenly opened its mouth, and sprayed out a beam of dark light. Qin Yang's eyes were cold, holding the Zuan sword in both hands, and slashed wildly. The mystery of the desolate sea, annihilation without life. Boom, he slashed with this sword. A desolate and lifeless deep sea suddenly descended. Everything in the world became dead silent. Silent annihilation was happening. The black beam was annihilating. The black snake was annihilating. Even the ruins of the nearby dilapidated buildings were annihilating. After a long time, it seemed like only 1 or 2 seconds, everything returned to nothingness. Qin Yang dispersed the black tortoise blade in his hand and looked back. It's worth it to see your blade. It's worth it. Leng Kang stood not far from him and smiled. Qin Yang pondered in silence. Qin Yang, thank you very much. Although I didn't defend Yangning's city, you stopped the high-level ghost weapon from turning into a ghost seed for me, and didn't let it continue to harm the people. Leng Kang continued. Do you have any other wishes? Qin Yang said softly. No more. Leng Kang shook his head. Qin Yang clasped his fists and said, take care on your journey. You too. Don't miss me or feel sad. I chose this path. I have no regrets if I die here. Qin Yang, don't stay any longer. Go where you should go. Leng Kang's face was full of smiles. This was the first time Qin Yang saw Leng Kang smile so happily. In the past, he always looked cold, tired and tough. Don't worry, I will. Qin Yang nodded. Leng Kang waved at Qin Yang, turned around and left. His body gradually turned into light spots and dissipated. Not only Leng Kang, Qin Yang seemed to see many illusory figures saluting him and then dissipating. Among them was the old beggar he met in front of the city gate. As these light spots floated into the sky, the dark clouds covering Yangning's city suddenly dissipated. A beam of golden sunlight penetrated the clouds and fell on Qin Yang's face. It also fell on this piece of ruined land. Everything has changed. Qin Yang sighed and left Yangning's city in a slightly bleak manner. The dead are gone, but he is still alive and cannot stay here. Chapter 364 Daewoo. After leaving Yangning's city, Qin Yang headed all the way to Daewoo Imperial City. Along the way, he passed by many cities, and whenever he encountered a high-level ghost weapon, he would suppress it. The name Qin Yang is well known throughout the world. These days, the Daewoo dynasty has been tortured too much by these ghost weapons that descended from the void, and countless people have been killed and injured. Now that Qin Yang has suppressed the ghost weapons all the way, he finally gave the desperate people of Daewoo a little hope. They hope that Qin Yang can eliminate all the ghost weapons and bring peace to the world. Daewoo Imperial City, deep in the palace. A man with a majestic face and noble temperament sat in the study, mumbling in silence. He was wearing a dragon robe, had a short beard, and deep eyes. This man was the 36th monarch of the Daewoo dynasty, Qi Kang. This man was also a wise monarch. After taking office, he worked hard to govern the country and attempted to revive the Daewoo dynasty. But after so many years, the Daewoo dynasty had long been rotten and difficult to recover. In addition, various natural and man-made disasters continued to occur, which made the Daewoo dynasty even worse. In addition, the most fatal thing was that the forbidden technique of isolating the heaven and earth was ineffective. The arrival of the void ghost species made Qi Kang even more exhausted. This is no longer a problem that he, a human emperor, can handle. Even whether the Daewoo dynasty can continue, has become a problem. In recent days, 3 state cities have been infected by ghost weapons, with countless casualties. If this continues, I'm afraid that even the Daewoo Imperial City will not be able to be saved. But today Qi Kang finally saw a good news. In his hand, he was holding a top secret case file. This is a case file transferred from the Imperial City Patrol Department, which records all the information of a person. Chief Zhao, what realm do you think Qin Yang is now? Qi Kang asked softly, after reading Qin Yang's information. There was also an old man in the study. The old man was a little hunched, wearing ordinary clothes, and there were some age spots on his face. He looked like an ordinary old man. But this old man was Zhao Zhangming, who was known as the backbone of Daewoo, and the chief of the patrol department. High-level ghost weapons are not something that ordinary martial saints can deal with. I'm afraid this person's strength has reached the level of Tangshan martial saint. Zhao Zhangming said in a deep voice. Tangshan martial saint? According to the information, he is not even 25 years old this year. Even Qi Kang, who is used to big scenes, was shocked. You know, even if the spiritual energy is revived, it is much easier for warriors to break through than before. But Tangshan martial saint who is less than 25 years old is really exaggerated. You know, the strength of Kunshan continent is much weaker than that of Xianfeng continent. There are only 4 Tangshan martial saints in the entire dynasty, and they are all old monsters over 100 years old. Qin Yang should be the blood of immortals and Buddhas. Since he joined the patrol department, he has been making great progress and breaking through continuously. With such talent, only the explanation of immortals and Buddhas' blood can make sense. Zhao Zhangming said softly. The blood of immortals and Buddhas is indeed powerful, but there is no need to exaggerate to this extent. General Bei's youngest son has also awakened the blood of immortals and Buddhas, but he is still only a true warrior. Qi Kang frowned. Your Majesty, there is also a gap between the blood of immortals and Buddhas. Zhao Zhangming said softly. I really envy those who have the blood of immortals and Buddhas. Qi Kang shook his head and sighed, then said, after this person returned from Xianfeng continent, he went all the way from Kangshuzhou to the Imperial City. I'm afraid he has some purpose for this trip. Zhao Zhangming said in a deep voice. This old man also guessed so, but we haven't grasped Qin Yang's whereabouts for sure. We can only know his purpose after he comes to the Imperial City. From his previous information, this person's style of doing things is domineering, fierce and cruel, which is quite in line with the style of your patrol sky division. I just hope that it won't cause a storm in the Imperial City. Qi Kang sighed. Judging from Qin Yang's past resume, he has always been at odds with the aristocratic families. But the most numerous in Daewoo Imperial City are the major aristocratic families. These aristocratic families are so powerful and intertwined that even Qi Kang sometimes has to choose to give in. Once Qin Yang comes, there is a high possibility of a huge conflict with the aristocratic families. If it was before, Qi Kang would naturally be happy to see it happen. But now that the void ghosts have descended, the Daewoo dynasty is in a precarious situation, and he doesn't want to see this happen. It's hard to say. Zhao Zhangming couldn't judge. Besides, no one can stop a Tangshan Washan from coming to Daewoo Imperial City. CUI family. Among the many aristocratic families in Daewoo Imperial City, CUI family is the leader. Because CUI Bayan, the head of CUI family, broke through to Tangshan Washan realm half a year ago. In the environment where ghost weapons continue to descend, strength has become the greatest voice. Your wedding with Ling Qingsu will be held in 3 days. During this period, you should keep a close eye on her and remember not to make any trouble. CUI Bayan said softly while sitting in the main seat. In front of him stood a handsome young man, but his temperament was a little frivolous. I understand naturally. Father, is the blood of immortals and Buddhas really that important? CUI He couldn't help asking one more question. Of course. This blood of immortals and Buddhas is the opportunity to become immortals, and it is extremely important to our CUI family. CUI Bayan said in a deep voice. Don't worry, father, but Ling Qingsu is a spiritual master, and her cultivation is higher than mine. What if she wants to do something? CUI He looked hesitant. Don't worry, I have asked someone to seal the woman's magic power. Her master is also in my hands. Don't worry. CUI Bayan said. That's fine. CUI He nodded. At this time, in another deep courtyard of the CUI family, a tall woman with a beautiful face and almost perfect facial features was watering the plants in the courtyard. It seems that you are ready to accept your fate. An old woman sat on a stone bench nearby and smiled. Fate. My fate is naturally decided by me, Ling Qingsu said lightly. But you can't make the decision now. Your magic power has been sealed by me. How can you make the decision? The old woman sneered. Ling Qingsu glanced at the old woman and continued to water the flowers. You are still stubborn. The old woman snorted. Maybe. Ling Qingsu didn't seem to want to listen to the old witch's chattering here, so he walked into his room and closed the door. According to the agreement, even the old woman couldn't step out of here. After entering the room, Ling Qingsu sat on the bed and frowned slightly. She didn't expect that she was just thinking about going to Daudi City with her master, but she accidentally met the old guy Cui Bayan outside the city. The other party also had a sharp eye and saw that Ling Qingsu's bloodline was special at a glance, so he took her and her master away. Cui Bayan also threatened Ling Qingsu's master's life and forced Ling Qingsu to marry his youngest son, Cui He. In fact, during the days of being trapped, Ling Qingsu had tried various methods, but couldn't get out, and was completely blocked. It seems that the only choice left for me is my own life, Ling Qingsu said to herself. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 365, Looking for Someone. Dayu Imperial City. Looking at the magnificent city wall in the distance, Qin Yang's heart was not disturbed. Compared with the dark giant city in the forbidden land of Desolate Moon, the so-called Dayu Imperial City was just that in his eyes. Nowadays, the world is in chaos, ghost weapons are constantly coming, and even the state capital has become unsafe. For the people of Dayu Dynasty, Dayu Imperial City is the safest place in the world. There are 4 Tangshan Washangs guarding here, as well as countless masters and elite flying tiger soldiers patrolling the streets day and night. This also led to a surge in the population of the Imperial City. Qi Kang had no choice but to build several new cities not far from Dayu Imperial City to ease the continuous influx of people. Now, if you want to enter the Imperial City, you need to have documents for entry and exit, otherwise you can't enter. It was early morning at this moment. The gate of Dayu Imperial City was full of people who wanted to enter the city. When Qin Yang appeared in front of the city gate, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. I'm Zhang Huang, the director of the patrol department, and I meet Qin Xiao. This is a man with a hooked nose, who looks a little sinister. But in front of Qin Yang, he seemed very respectful. If the people of Dayu Imperial City saw Zhang Huang like this, they would be shocked. Is this still the cold and murderous Zhang Huang? Chief, I'm no longer a member of the patrol department. Qin Yang shook his head. I understand, Senior Qin, Zhang Huang said softly. Even though he was much older than Qin Yang, he didn't feel anything strange when he was called senior. In the world of warriors, the one who has achieved success comes first. Qin Yang has been suppressing ghost weapons all the way, and his reputation is great. How did you know I would come here today? Qin Yang asked with a smile. We can't grasp Senior Qin's whereabouts, so we can only guard the gate of Dayu Imperial City day and night, waiting for the senior to come. Zhang Huang explained. No wonder. I want to meet your chief. Qin Yang got straight to the point. He didn't want to waste too much time. No problem. I'll take you there right away, Zhang Huang said immediately. Let's go. A long time ago. Qin Yang nodded. The two disappeared in front of the city gate in an instant. Their brief conversation attracted the attention of many people. Not only the patrol department, but also the major families in the Imperial City sent people to wait at various gates. Seeing Qin Yang and Zhang Huang disappear, they quickly reported the news. Qin Yang entered the Imperial City, which was a big news. Of course, this news did not spread to the people. This was Qi Kang's idea. No one knew Qin Yang's intention. It was better to find out his intention first. The Imperial City Patrol Department. The densely packed buildings were dark and gloomy, and even in the daytime, it made people feel depressed and horrified. Qin Yang looked around casually like a tourist. Speaking of which, Chief Song, Len Kang also came out of the Imperial City Patrol Department. Qin Yang asked. As soon as he stepped into the Imperial City Patrol Department, he could sense many prying eyes. Yes, Chief Song was a supervisor like me before. And Len Kang was Chief Song's most capable subordinate. Zhang Huang said softly. Well, it's a pity that they are all gone. Qin Yang shook his head. Perhaps this is the fate of us who punish evildoers. Zhang Huang seemed very indifferent. Of course, it is also possible that he is used to seeing the separation of life and death. Qin Yang did not reply. The two of them kept shuttling back and forth in the Imperial City Patrol Department and finally came to a hall. Zhao Zhangming, who was still dressed simply and looked like a little old man, had been waiting in front of the hall. "Brother Qin, I'm Zhao Zhangming." Zhao Zhangming smiled and clasped his fists. The chief of the patrol department acted like this, which can be said to give Qin Yang enough face. This is also the conclusion Zhao Zhangming came to after reviewing Qin Yang's case files. This person is soft-hearted and not hard-hearted. "Hello, Chief Zhao." Qin Yang clasped his fists in return. "Come, let's talk inside." Zhao Zhangming took Qin Yang's hand very closely and walked into the hall. The two sat down at a wooden table. "I know you must be confused too. Why did I come to Daewoo Imperial City?" Qin Yang smiled. "I really can't guess. Even His Majesty is concerned about why Brother Qin came to the Imperial City." Zhao Zhangming was very frank. "I came here this time to build a magic array." Qin Yang saw Zhao Zhangming like this, and he didn't hide it, and told him his purpose. This can also prevent the other party from making unnecessary guesses. After Zhao Zhangming listened quietly, his eyes flashed with surprise. "The completion of this teleportation array will benefit our Daewoo dynasty without any harm. You know, there are many masters in Xianfeng continent. Once masters can teleport here at will, if something happens in Daewoo Imperial City, masters from Xianfeng continent can also come to support. Daewoo dynasty can also send the younger generation to Xianfeng continent to train and grow. That's probably what happened. Go and explain it to the current person. I'll wait for your reply." Qin Yang said softly. He knew that this matter was not something that Zhao Zhangming could decide alone. Even Qi Kang couldn't decide. Only after multiple forces negotiated could an answer be given. "Okay, then I'll go to the palace now. Brother Qin, how about staying in the sky patrol for the next few days?" Zhao Zhangming smiled. "Yes. Hurry up," Qin Yang said lightly. "Soon." The two said goodbye and left. Zhang Huang took Qin Yang to a quiet courtyard to sit down. After Zhao Zhangming entered the palace, Cui Bian, the head of the Cui family, and General Bei Zhenchen also entered the palace one after another and left late at night. For a time, many forces were speculating on the cause, but they knew Daewoo Imperial City was afraid that a severe earthquake would occur. However, ordinary people didn't know about these things at all, and there were no rumors in the streets. The next day, a pale Taoist entered Daewoo Imperial City. In Daewoo Imperial City, ordinary people naturally cannot enter without entry and exit documents, but this rule does not apply to warriors and spiritual masters. This time it's over. In order to suppress the ghost weapon, it took a lot of time. "I don't know if my junior sister is still in Daewoo Imperial City." Song Lingzi sighed. He and his junior sister Yunling had originally agreed to meet in Daewoo City half a month ago, but he wasted a lot of time on the way to deal with a ghost weapon. After asking along the way, Song Lingzi finally found out where he was going. Sahain. But when he came to Sahain to ask, he didn't get any news about his junior sister. "Shopkeeper, are you sure you haven't seen her?" Song Lingzi frowned slightly. He took out Yunling's portrait and asked the other party to confirm it again. "Think about it again, master. How dare I lie to you? I really haven't seen this person." The shopkeeper recalled carefully and shook his head. Song Lingzi had no choice but to leave Sahain and wander on the street alone. "How is it possible? Could it be that my junior sister is in trouble too? No. Her apprentice is very powerful now. What's going on?" Song Lingzi couldn't figure it out. Chapter 366 Reunion. Song Yunzi thought about it and still felt uneasy about his junior sister Yunling. He also roughly knew which direction Yunling would come to Daewoo City from, so he simply went out of the city again to look for Yunling's trace. He asked in various villages in Daewoo City along the way. As a result, Song Yunzi really got news about his junior sister. "Old man, have you really seen my junior sister?" Song Lingzi was surprised. "Yes. In addition to her, there was also a very beautiful girl. It should be half a month ago. At that time, there was an evil spirit near our village and killed many people. It was your junior sister and this girl who solved it for us," an old farmer with dark skin said seriously. Then where did they go later? Song Lingzi continued to ask. Towards Daudi City. The old farmer pointed in the direction of Daudi City. Song Lingzi frowned. He asked other people in the village again. He found that they had all seen his junior sister Yun Lingzi. This is really an accident, since junior sister Yunling has gone to Daudi City, but not to the inn. Then something happened on the way. After leaving the village, Song Lingzi found a dilapidated temple and walked in. He carefully took out a piece of yellow cloth and uncovered it. Inside was a strand of black hair. This hair was naturally Yunling's. For spiritual masters, hair, nails, and blood can all be used to cast some curses. So they basically won't leak these things. This strand of hair was secretly hidden by Song Lingzi himself, and Yunling didn't know. Song Lingzi bit off his finger and squeezed out a drop of blood that fell into the hair. Then he pinched his hand seal and recited the formula. In an instant, the strand of hair began to emit green smoke. In a trance, Song Lingzi seemed to hear Yunling's voice. Cui by and the next moment, the hair was completely burned. Song Lingzi breathed a sigh of relief. Being able to contact Yunling means that the other party is still alive. But just now, after he contacted Yunling through the hair, he could sense a strong interference force. This caused Yunling to say only 3 words before the contact was cut off. Junior sister Yunling should be trapped in the formation. It is also possible that she is bound by a magic weapon. Cui Bayan, isn't this one of the 4 great martial saints of the Dao dynasty? Song Lingzi had heard of this person's name. No, I have to go to Dao Imperial City again. After erasing the traces of the ruined temple, Song Lingzi quickly entered the city. He did not rashly go to Cui's mansion to inquire, but went to the city god temple. This place is generally a place where dragons and snakes are mixed with many monsters and ghosts. Song Lingzi quickly found out some information here and learned that Cui Bayan's youngest son would get married in 2 days. However, this marriage seemed very special. No one was invited to a banquet and no one knew who the bride was. After learning this information, Song Lingzi probably knew what was going on. He knew that the person who was going to marry Cui Bayan's youngest son should not be his junior sister Yunling, but her apprentice. Because the apprentice of the junior sister has a very special bloodline. This is going to be difficult. Cui Bayan is a martial saint. How can a small spiritual master like me get in? The only way is to ask for help. Song Lingzi began to inquire about the information of another person. At this time, he naturally thought of his good brother, Qin Yang. It would have been better if Song Lingzi hadn't asked, but once he asked, it was all about Qin Yang. When he heard that Qin Yang had suppressed many high-level ghost weapons, Song Lingzi's jaw dropped. Is this guy so powerful? Could it be that they have the same name? Song Lingzi continued to inquire in disbelief, and then confirmed that this Qin Yang was the one he knew. But no one knows his whereabouts now, only that he is heading to Daudi City. I'm going to get married the day after tomorrow. It will be troublesome if this guy doesn't arrive. Song Lingzi frowned. He knew he had to do something. He thought about it, left the city god temple, and went to the patrol department. Taoist, you want to see the chief? The captain guarding the gate of the patrol department looked suspicious when he saw the Taoist in front of him. He was guarding the gate of the patrol department in the Imperial City. He had seen many spiritual masters and was not as odd as ordinary people. Yes, I used to work in the patrol department of Shan County. Song Lingzi said seriously. I'm sorry that you can't see the chief whenever you want. The captain shook his head. A county level patrol department simply couldn't be put on the stage here. Wait for me to finish. When I was in the Shan patrol department, I met someone. We are good brothers who have been through life and death together. Song Lingzi smiled. I don't want to know who you know. Please leave as soon as possible. The captain felt that Song Lingzi was a little mentally abnormal. But spiritual masters have always been like this. He just wanted to get rid of this guy as soon as possible. That man is Qin Yang. Song Lingzi said lightly. What do I call that man? Wait. What did you say? The captain's eyes suddenly widened. Qin Yang. He is my brother. Song Lingzi smiled. Taoist, don't lie to me. The captain's eyes became serious. These things should be recorded in the case files of your patrol department. Song Lingzi was confident. He came to the patrol department this time to use Qin Yang's tiger skin to let the patrol department put pressure on CUI Bayan. The captain did not dare to neglect it and quickly sent people to verify the truth of Song Ling's words. Qin Yang was meditating in the room and suddenly heard a call from outside the door. Senior Qin, there is a spiritual master at the door of the patrol department who claims to be your best friend. Qin Yang heard the words, stopped the Yuan Qi Yuan rotation, and pushed open the door. Best friend? Who is it? That person claims to be Song Lingzi. The guard of the patrol department clasped his fists. Song Lingzi? This kid also came to Daewoo Emperor City? Qin Yang heard these 3 words, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. Yes. Then I will go and invite him over now. The guard of the patrol department said respectfully. No need. I'll go see him. Qin Yang shook his head, and his figure flashed and disappeared. At this moment, outside the Shiangsan division, Song Lingzi was yawning out of boredom. A hand suddenly slapped him on the shoulder. Which guy attacked me? Song Lingzi's scalp tingled instantly, and he turned around abruptly. A familiar face appeared in his eyes. Song Lingzi, why are you still so weak? Qin Yang smiled. You kid. Song Lingzi was also very surprised to see Qin Yang. Okay, let's find a place to drink. Qin Yang smiled. I'll find you in a hurry another day. Song Lingzi said seriously. Qin Yang saw him like this and whispered, what's the matter? Song Lingzi pulled Qin Yang to the corner and whispered a few words in his ear. Soon. Qin Yang's face was covered with frost. I originally wanted to come here to use your influence to put pressure on the CUI family. I didn't expect you to be in the Sky Patrol, but it's a good thing now. Song Lingzi said in a deep voice. Chapter 367, Home. Song Lingzi knew that going to the CUI family alone was just looking for death. That's why he wanted to come to the patrol department to see if he could use their power. He didn't expect Qin Yang to be in the patrol department. Are you sure Zhao Huan is in the CUI mansion? Walking on the street, Qin Yang couldn't help asking. Yes. She now has a name, Ling Qingsu. Song Lingzi said. Ling Qingsu? Why did you give her this name? Qin Yang was puzzled. My junior sister's name in the mortal world is Ling. She should have taken my junior sister's surname. Song Lingzi explained. Ling Qingsu, it's been a long time since I last saw this girl. Qin Yang said softly. After you left Shan County, the girl showed some strange changes. The immortal Buddha bloodline in her body seemed to have begun to awaken, and then her whole body condensed into an ice sculpture. Song Lingzi said softly. Why didn't Yunling write to me? Qin Yang asked curiously. She did write it, but at that time Yangning Prefecture was invaded by the Nandmang tribe, so it might have been lost. She wrote several more letters afterwards, but none of them were replied to. Song Lingzi explained. I went to Xianfeng continent later. Qin Yang shook his head. No wonder. But the girl is fine. Even though she was frozen, her life force is getting stronger. Even her body is growing. It wasn't until a year ago that she completed her blood awakening. Song Lingzi continued. You said her blood was special at the time. I didn't expect it to be the blood of immortals and Buddhas. Qin Yang smiled. I didn't expect it either. Song Ling shook his head. Let's go. It's not too late for everything. Qin Yang said softly. After asking around on the street, the two came to a huge mansion. This mansion was extremely magnificent. The length of the courtyard wall alone occupied half of the street. There were 8 steps in front of the door, and many pavilions could be seen through the courtyard wall. A dozen guards were guarding the gate. Seeing Qin Yang and Song Lingzi trying to come in, a guard came forward to ask. I don't know what you two are here for. The guard asked. No, I came to see CUI Bayan. Qin Yang said lightly. How dare you? Who are you? How dare you call the master by his name? The guard scolded directly. If it were in the past, Qin Yang would have chopped him off with a knife. But as his strength continued to increase, Qin Yang found that his mentality had changed a long time ago. He ignored the guard's intention. Because this guard was like an ant to him. No one would care about an ant. Because the life and death of this ant depends on his thoughts. He said to the huge mansion, CUI Bayan, come out and see me. The calm and deep voice suddenly echoed over the CUI mansion. Many of the CUI mansion's master guards, servants and maids felt uneasy all over. They seemed to hear the deep sea getting angry and setting off a terrifying tsunami. Deep in the CUI mansion, an old man was sitting cross-legged and practicing. His name was Zhangda, and he was the chief worshipper of the CUI mansion. His strength had reached the realm of the sensing martial saint. When Qin Yang's voice came, Zhangda suddenly opened his eyes, and his pupils suddenly bulged and quickly became bloodshot. Finally, as if because of too much pressure, his two eyes suddenly exploded. Zhangda screamed and died. He sensed the energy that he could not bear. But soon, a violent breath also rose from the depths of the CUI mansion. Who came to my CUI mansion to cause trouble? CUI Bayan's black hair fluttered, and he roared at the sky like an angry lion. The next moment, his figure disappeared from the spot. Ling Qingsu, who was trapped in the room, heard this voice, and her originally depressed mood suddenly became ecstatic. It's the young master. It's the young master's voice. Although she hadn't heard Qin Yang's voice for a long time, Ling Qingsu knew that she must have heard it right. This was Qin Yang's voice. In a courtyard not far from Ling Qingsu, Yunling was also trapped in the room. This room was set up with a large formation, and she couldn't get out with her strength. But when she heard this voice, a smile appeared on her cold face. At the entrance of CUI's house, the dozen guards were so scared that they looked at Qin Yang in horror. They knew that the person who could provoke CUI Bayan like this must be a peerless master. Especially the guard who had just spoken rudely. He was so scared that his legs went weak and he knelt on the ground. Qin Yang didn't bother to pay attention to him and looked at the entrance of CUI's house. A tall and old figure came into view. Who are you? CUI Bayan looked at Qin Yang and shouted coldly. A violent aura suddenly emanated from him. Song Lingzi seemed to see a black-haired, ferocious lion roaring in a trance. The terrible aura even broke the void. Qin Yang looked calm, and a deep and cold aura also rose from his body. Boom. The sky even had a terrible change, becoming overcast, with lightning and thunder, and it was terribly oppressive. A terrifying beast with a dragon head, a turtle body, and a snake tail suddenly appeared in the void. Endless evil spirits were spreading wildly. Two terrifying and fierce auras collided fiercely in the air. Boom. At that moment, everyone in Daewoo Imperial City felt palpitations. Ordinary people were fine. But the strong men who had reached the realm of martial saints, or spiritual masters with powerful spirits, their pressure was even greater. Some even showed signs of broken hearts. In the palace, Qi Kang suddenly appeared in a tall building and looked into the distance. He saw two terrifying auras colliding under the sky covered with dark clouds. It's CUI Bayan. The other aura is a little strange. Among the Tangshan martial saints in Daewoo Imperial City, only that one's aura I haven't felt. Qi Kang said to himself. This person was naturally Qin Yang. He didn't know why Qin Yang had a conflict with CUI Bayan. But he couldn't let the two fight in Daewoo Emperor City. You know, the destructive power of Tangshan Washan is too terrifying. Once a fight breaks out in the city, in such a densely populated Daewoo Emperor City, who knows how many people will be killed or injured. The next moment, his figure disappeared in the tall building. Patrol Sky Division. Zhao Zhangming also stood on a roof, looking into the distance. I knew it would definitely happen. Zhao Zhangming sighed and shook his head. The next moment, he also turned into a stream of light and headed towards CUI Mansion. Boom. In the battle of the air and the air, the black lion was constantly hit and bitten by the black tortoise, and gradually showed signs of disintegration. CUI Bayan roared wildly, and the blood and ki burst out, and then the ki was stabilized. He looked at Qin Yang. His eyes were no longer as relaxed as before, and were filled with solemnity. Who are you? What do you think? Qin Yang said lightly. If I'm not mistaken, you should be Qin Yang. CUI Bayan is not a fool. He knows all the Tangshan Washans in Daewoo Emperor City. The only one I didn't recognize was Qin Yang. Chapter 368 Domineering. Not too stupid. Qin Yang said calmly. You and I have never had any dealings. Why did you come here to provoke me today? CUI Bayan asked coldly. The fact that Qin Yang came here today would soon spread throughout the entire Daewoo Imperial City. No matter what, he wanted him to give an explanation. HMPH. You kidnapped my junior sister and her apprentice. Hand them over quickly. Song Lingzi relied on Qin Yang to be by his side, and his back became stiff. Junior sister. Apprentice Cui Bayan saw Song Ling's dress and immediately understood something. So, you are standing up for your friend? Cui Bayan looked at Qin Yang. He didn't expect that the plundered immortal Buddha bloodline could actually involve Qin Yang. Standing up? No, I'm here to kill people. Qin Yang smiled. You. Cui Bayan didn't expect Qin Yang to be so domineering, and he didn't even take him, the Tangshan washing, seriously. You two. Let's talk about it, no need to fight. Zhao Zhangming appeared with his hands behind his back, looking helpless. Chief Zhao, I'm not being rude. It's just that Qin Yang behaves like this, and he doesn't take my Cui family seriously at all. Why should I be polite to him? Cui Bayan said coldly. Brother Qin, I also heard some of what you said just now. Are there any misunderstandings? Zhao Zhangming looked at Qin Yang. Whether there are misunderstandings or not, he should know. Qin Yang said indifferently. Humph. To tell you the truth, the person is indeed in my house. But you can't take him away today. Cui Bayan also tore his face. If he handed the person over like this, how would his Cui family survive in Dao Imperial City in the future? Then it depends on your ability. Qin Yang grinned and was about to take action. At this time, a heroic figure wearing bright scale armor and a dragon helmet walked into the street. He held a dragon gore spear and exuded a bloody aura. It was the general of Dao Empire, Bei Zenshan. It seems that I haven't missed this excitement. Bei Zenshan made a hoarse voice. Qin Yang glanced casually and did not take Bei Zenshan seriously. Cui Bayan. I'll count to 3. If you don't hand over the person, I will fight. Qin Yang said coldly. Everyone, please leave the city if you want to fight. A majestic voice suddenly sounded in the air. That's what I mean. You can fight, but you can't fight in the city. Zhao Zhangming smiled. Bei Zenshan said in a deep voice, there is a training ground more than 10 miles outside the city. You two can go there to show your skills. Qin Yang shook his head and said, I'm afraid that, if I leave the city, he will take the person away. I can guarantee this. Zhao Zhangming whistled. For a moment, Zhang Huang led many soldiers to surround Cui's mansion. No one can leave Cui's mansion before the competition is over. Zhao Zhangming said lightly. Qin Yang asked Song Lingzi to stay and said lightly, come here quickly, I will definitely beat you to death today. After that, he turned around and headed out of the city. Cui Bayan sneered, went back to the mansion to get his weapon, and rushed out of the city. This Qin Yang is really domineering. Bei Zenshan said indifferently. He doesn't take us seriously at all. He has experienced too much in Xianfeng continent. For him, Tangshan Washing may really be nothing. Zhao Zhangming shook his head. Then why don't you stop Cui Bayan? Bei Zenshan asked. Because I want to see Qin Yang's true strength. This is a rare opportunity. Zhao Zhangming smiled. You old fox. I also want to see how powerful Qin Yang is. Bei Zenshan had the same idea. The next moment, the two disappeared at the same time. More than 10 miles for Tangshan Washing is just a dozen breaths of time. Soon, Qin Yang and Cui Bayan appeared in an empty training ground. Zhao Zhangming and Bei Zenshan watched the battle from the side. Cui Bayan held a big golden knife and looked at Qin Yang opposite him. Let me see where your arrogance comes from. After saying that, Cui Bayan slashed out a golden knife. This golden knife was extremely terrifying, with the sound of a lion's roar, shocking the world. Qin Yang simply threw a punch. Bang! The terrifying golden knife was instantly extinguished by his punch. Is that all you can do? Qin Yang sneered, and he rushed towards Cui Bayan like thunder and hit him hard. Cui Bayan's face was solemn, and he swung the golden knife to slash. Boom boom. The two of them fought fiercely. The whole training ground was cut by the knife, and holes were constantly blasted out. Qin Yang was too terrifying. He was wrapped in platinum light, and his divine power was like the sea, like a god descending. Every punch seemed to be able to cause the void to collapse and explode. Cui Bayan was beaten back continuously, and the golden knife was even twisted by the punch. Such a terrifying physical strength this one. I'm afraid he also has the blood of immortals and Buddhas. Bei Zenshan saw this scene and shook his head in amazement. I don't feel the breath of immortal blood. He seems to be completely pure blood power. Zhao Zhangming thought Qin Yang was of immortal blood before. But when he saw Qin Yang's battle scene with his own eyes, he felt a different breath. Bei Zhenchen heard this and carefully felt the aura emitted by Qin Yang. His expression became more and more surprised. His son also awakened the blood of immortals and Buddhas not long ago. In other words, he also has the blood of immortals and Buddhas in his body, but it is too thin and has not awakened. But he can sense that Qin Yang does not have the breath of immortals and Buddhas at this moment. Can a mortal body have such a terrifying blood power? Bei Zhenchen couldn't believe it. Maybe he is the real peerless genius. Zhao Zhangming whispered. At this time in the training ground, Cui Bian had been suppressed by Qin Yang too much, and he roared wildly and directly opened his Dharma body. Boom! Exclamation mark. Cui Bian's body suddenly grew, and his black hair grew wildly, dancing in the wind like an angry lion. The golden sword in his hand shone with divine light and slashed at Qin Yang, as if he was creating the world. Break the void. Qin Yang also opened his Dharma body and was wrapped in dark blue mist and was protected by the black tortoise and punched like a supreme god. Boom! Exclamation mark. The void was broken like a mirror. How is it possible? Cui Bian roared in disbelief. Qin Yang's fist was so terrifying that he shattered the golden sword light. The next moment, a black tortoise long sword appeared in Qin Yang's hand, raising endless blood waves and covering Cui Bian. Ding ding ding. Cui Bian tried his best to block these bloody and murderous sword lights, but these sword lights intertwined and gathered, as if forming a sure blood sea. The strong bloody smell made people feel palpitating and uneasy. Two completely different sword lights kept cutting the earth. After Cui Bian struggled for dozens of moves, he screamed and his arm was cut off by Qin Yang's Zuanwu sword. Chapter 369. Ignore. The gap is too big. Zhao Zhangming knew that Qin Yang was very strong, but Cui Bian was also a true Tangshan Washing, and the martial arts he practiced were also top-notch. But in front of Qin Yang, he was like a child and was severely suppressed from beginning to end. It seemed that it was not a fight of the same level at all. Okay, the winner has been decided. Cui Bian has learned enough lessons. Bei Zhenchen saw that Cui Bian was already covered with scars and said softly, if the fight continues, I'm afraid Cui Bian will really die. This is too much of a loss for the Deu dynasty. Okay, let's both attack together and stop Qin Yang. Zhao Zhangnan nodded. A huge pressure that made the sky feel terrified suddenly descended. In an instant, a torrential rain fell from the sky and the earth. Qin Yang looked calm and punched Cui Bian. Dragon falling, white star falling into the sea. When he punched out, the sky seemed to have a crack, and a white meteor fell down. The brilliant light of the white meteor even illuminated the sky and the earth. He's going to kill Cui Bian. Zhao Zhangming felt a breath. His expression changed drastically. He didn't expect Qin Yang to really kill Cui Bian. Bei Zhenchen looked at the white meteor, his expression trembling, and shook his head and said, it's too late. Cui Bian saw the falling white star. His expression was crazy. You want to kill me? I won't let you have an easy time. The next moment, he frantically stirred up the vitality in his body, and his body swelled up wildly. When the white star fell on him, boom, the mountain shook the earth. A mushroom cloud of terrifying smoke and dust rose. It seemed that several miles were torn apart and annihilated by the violent vitality. Even Daewoo Imperial City was affected and shook violently. What a terrible loud noise. What happened? Could it be that the ghost species has descended? The people of Daewoo Imperial City were horrified and kept discussing. Zhao Zhangming and Bei Zhenchen were entangled with vitality, resisting the impact of the violent vitality. They smiled bitterly at each other. They didn't expect Qin Yang to be so murderous that he really didn't plan to let Cui Bian go. When the dust settled, a figure was patting the dust off his body and grinning at them. This Cui Bian is really not resistant to beating. One punch will kill him. After Qin Yang said this, he ignored Zhao Zhangming and Bei Zhenchen and disappeared quickly. Sir Zhao, what do you think about the Cui family? Bei Zhenchen asked. I don't know. It depends on how your majesty handles it. Zhao Zhangming practiced take eye. The two looked at the distance at the same time. Qi Kang's figure appeared quietly. He was actually there all the time. But in order to avoid an embarrassing scene, he had been hiding in the dark. It's good that Cui Bayan is dead. Without this leader, the family can't unite as a rope. Maybe it's a good thing for my Deu dynasty, Qi Kang said lightly. When Zhao Zhangming heard this, he immediately understood Qi Kang's thoughts. In the future, the Deu imperial city may no longer have the name of Cui family. Bai Zhenshan's eyes flickered, but he didn't say anything. Cui's house. Song Lingzi was guarding the door. When Qin Yang appeared in his eyes again, Song Lingzi was not very surprised. With the loud noise just now, he knew that the battle was over. You solved it faster than I thought. Song Lingzi laughed. It's just an old dog, you can kill it at will. Qin Yang looked calm. But Zhang Huang, who was also guarding the door, heard this and his expression became quite strange. This is one of the 4 great martial saints of the Deu dynasty. In Qin Yang's mouth, he became an old dog. You are still amazing. Hurry up and go in to see if my junior sister has been wronged. Song Lingzi said impatiently. Qin Yang nodded and immediately took Song Lingzi into the Cui mansion. Zhang Huang naturally did not dare to stop him and even led the way for Qin Yang in front. The current Cui mansion has long been controlled by the patrol of the sky and it can be unobstructed all the way. Master Song Lingzi's junior sister is trapped in a courtyard. As for the other one, she is in trouble. Zhang Huang said hesitantly while walking on the road. What trouble? Qin Yang frowned. Senior Qin will know when you go there. Zhang Huang didn't say much. They first came to the courtyard where Yunling was. Yunling's appearance was almost the same as before, still so cold and calm. Even though she was trapped for so long, she didn't look panicked or confused. Junior sister. When Song Lingzi saw Yunling, he seemed to be too excited and wanted to rush over directly. Bang! A ball of snow appeared out of thin air and hit Song Lingzi's face hard. Junior sister, I risked my life to save you this time. Song Lingzi's nose was bleeding, and he said innocently. Yunling didn't bother to pay attention to this guy, and whispered to Qin Yang, thank you for saving me. It's okay. It's just a piece of cake. Where is Xiaohan? Qin Yang asked. In the courtyard not far ahead. Yunling said softly. Several people immediately walked towards the yard. Before entering, Qin Yang frowned. He felt that the yard seemed to be shrouded by a barrier. If anyone dares to come in, I will kill this girl. A cold and vicious voice came from the house deep in the yard. Senior Qin, this is the trouble I mentioned. According to the people in Cui Mansion, Ling Qingsu is guarded by a spiritual master named Rang Mei. When she noticed something unusual, she immediately blocked the entire yard, and we didn't dare to step in. Zhang Huang explained. What is Rang Mei's cultivation level? Song Lingzi asked. She is in the realm of spirit, and has not yet entered the realm of the soul. Zhang Huang said quickly. She is in the realm of spirit, which is a bit tricky. Song Lingzi frowned. Qin Yang said in a deep voice, what do you want? It's very simple, give me a way out. Rang Mei's voice came out. Live. Unfortunately, I have never compromised. Qin Yang shook his head. Inside the house, Rang Mei heard this, and a trace of panic flashed across her face. She looked at Ling Qingsu. This young master you mentioned doesn't seem to care about you too much. Ling Qingsu said lightly, I care about him, that's enough. The next moment, a terrifying and terrible evil spirit suddenly descended into the house. Rang Mei's mind was suddenly shocked and stagnated for a moment. This one time was enough to be fatal. A figure had already rushed into the house and slapped Rang Mei's head with a big hand. Bang! Rang Mei's whole head was smashed in an instant. Are you really Xiaohan? Qin Yang looked at the beautiful woman in front of him and was a little surprised. Young master. Ling Qingsu saw Qin Yang and threw herself into his arms excitedly. It's really you. I didn't recognize you. I haven't seen you for a few years, and you're so beautiful. Qin Yang shook his head. No matter what, I'm still the young master's maid. Ling Qingsu smiled. Song Lingzi walked in from behind and saw this scene, his face full of envy. He wished that his junior sister Yunling could also throw herself at him like this. That would be a real death without regrets. Chapter 370 Search. After rescuing Ling Qingsu, Qin Yang took his men away without caring about the subsequent developments. Zhang Huang naturally did not dare to stop him. He just looked at Cui Mansion with a helpless look on his face, not knowing how to deal with it. Send these people from Cui Mansion to Zhishizhao. Zhao Zhangming quietly appeared beside Zhang Huang. Understood. Zhang Huang breathed a sigh of relief. As long as there is a decision from above. Of course, this can also explain certain things. For example, Cui Bayan should never come back. The Cui mansion's affairs seemed to be suppressed by an invisible black hand, and did not cause any waves in Daewoo Emperor City. Most people did not know the news of Cui Bayan's death. Only some family forces knew about this, but they did not dare to make it public. At the same time, the ancestors of these families all issued a death order that no one in the family could offend Qin Yang. Even Cui Bayan, a martial saint, could be killed by Qin Yang. How could these ancestors dare to offend Qin Yang? If he came to kill them, who could stop them? Qin Yang and others found a private room in a restaurant, ordered a table of wine and food, and began to talk. Ling Qingsu's eyes lit up when she heard about Qin Yang's experience in Xianfeng continent. Master, are you coming back to build a teleportation array this time? Ling Qingsu asked. Yes. We must open up the connection between Xianfeng continent and Kunshan continent. Otherwise, when the void ghost seed really descends, it will be useless for me alone. Qin Yang said in a deep voice. The strength of Kunshan continent is too weak. The so-called Tangshan Washan is also weaker than Xianfeng continent. This is the difference in foundation. Even if Qin Yang breaks through to the ascension before the void ghost seed descends. But he alone cannot change the situation of the entire Kunshan continent. To build a magic array, you need a Yuanshan spirit master. Qingsu may be able to help with this. Yunling said. Qingsu should not be Yuanshan yet. Qin Yang was puzzled. He could feel that Ling Qingsu's current cultivation should be the cultivation of the divine soul realm. Of course, with her cultivation in her body, it will not take long for her to break through to the Yuanshan spirit master. But what Qin Yang lacks most now is time. This time Qingsu and I came to Daewoo Imperial City. It's because Qingsu felt a secret realm of the immortal mansion. If we can help her enter the secret realm of the immortal mansion, she should be able to break through soon. Besides, this Kunshan continent is not Xianfeng continent. It's not that easy to find a Yuanshan spirit master. Yunling said. Qin Yang was surprised when he heard this. Qingsu, did you really feel a secret realm of the immortal mansion? Yes, since I broke through to the Shenpo realm, I have had some kind of mysterious feeling in my heart. It seems that something is calling me. Ling Qingsu nodded. It seems that your ancestor really left something for you. Qin Yang was thoughtful. Ling Qingsu is the blood of immortals and Buddhas, so her ancestor is naturally an immortal. If the secret realm of the immortal mansion can be found, it will naturally not be a problem to help Ling Qingsu break through to the Yuanshan spirit master. Qingsu, can you feel where the secret realm of the immortal mansion is? Qin Yang asked. Yes. Not far from Daewoo Imperial City. Ling Qingsu nodded. Then let's go now. Qin Yang did not delay at all, and did not even give people time to rest. Song Lingzi and Yunling had no objection. Ling Qingsu was even more so. Several people set off quickly, and followed Ling Qingsu's induction. They headed north of Daewoo Imperial City. After about 30 miles, a snowy mountain appeared in their sight. The mountain range of this snowy mountain was rugged and winding, and there was a peak that was the most conspicuous, towering into the clouds. I studied the terrain near Daewoo Imperial City before I came here. This snowy mountain is called Xiangsu Mountain. The snow on these snowy mountains comes from nowhere, but it has not melted for thousands of years. The people nearby call it Xiangsu Mountain. The highest peak among them is said to have never been climbed because of the extremely bad weather. Song Lingzi introduced. It's on that high mountain. Ling Qingsu pointed to the snowy peak. Several people set off immediately. At their speed, it took less than an hour to reach the top of the snowy mountain. They didn't even encounter any obstacles. This is not that difficult. Song Lingzi muttered. It may be because of Qingsu. If she is not with us, there may be a big avalanche or something like that. Qin Yang smiled. That's right. Song Lingzi nodded. When they arrived at a platform on the top of the snowy mountain. This is. Song Lingzi looked surprised. There is a sculpture of a flying goddess on the top of the snowy mountain. She is wrapped in ribbons, fluttering, and her face is flawless. With the scene of snow flying on the top of the snowy mountain, it really looks like a goddess ascending. Even Qin Yang has the same expression as Song Lingzi. because the facial features of this goddess statue are almost 90% similar to Ling Qingsu. Qingsu, this statue may really have something to do with you, Qin Yang said softly. Yes. Ling Qingsu nodded. She came to the goddess statue and knelt down respectfully and kowtowed. Junior Ling Qingsu, meet the ancestors. At the moment she kowtowed, the goddess statue suddenly bloomed with brilliant white light. The figures of Qin Yang and others disappeared directly on the top of the snowy mountain. Only the endless wind and snow were whistling. The statue of the flying goddess stood quietly. When Qin Yang regained his sight, he saw that he was in a world of ice and snow. A building he had never seen before appeared in front of him. It was an ice crystal palace that seemed to be carved out of huge ice. This palace was more like a work of art, with exquisiteness and beauty everywhere. Is this the secret realm of the immortal mansion? Song Lingzi looked at the palace with shocking eyes. Qin Yang came back to his senses and looked to the side. Song Lingzi, Yunling, and Ling Qingsu all appeared beside him. I can feel that it is the palace calling me. Ling Qingsu looked at the palace and murmured to herself. This palace should have been the palace of an immortal, and this immortal is Qingsu's ancestor. Song Lingzi said softly. Everyone began to head towards the ice crystal snow palace. In front of the gate of the blood palace, there were two ice and snow sculptures standing separately. They hold long spears and wear ice armor, and have been guarding this place for countless years. Be careful. Song Lingzi's expression tightened. This ice guard does not seem to be a living thing. Don't forget where this place is. With the means of immortals, it is natural to turn decay into magic. Qingsu, you go in front. Don't be afraid, I'll watch from behind. Qin Yang said softly. He felt that these ice guards would probably not hurt Ling Qingsu. Ling Qingsu trusted Qin Yang very much and immediately walked towards the gate of the ice crystal palace. Creak, the two ice guards moved, and like rusty mechanical gears, they made a creaking sound. Song Ling's eyes jumped, and when he was about to take action, Qin Yang stretched out his hand to stop him. The two ice guards actually knelt down on one knee towards Ling Qingsu. Chapter 371 Palace. Ling Qingsu was also a little nervous. When she saw these ice guards kneeling down to her, she was relieved. They are all my friends. Don't hurt them. Ling Qingsu didn't know if the two ice guards could understand. But it was obvious that the two ice guards obviously understood and nodded to Ling Qingsu. Interesting. I didn't expect these ice guards to be so obedient. Song Lingzi muttered. They followed Ling Qingsu into the ice palace. The palace was empty, and it was a huge square. The ground was nearly transparent ice crystals, which could reflect people's images. In the middle of the square, there was also an ice crystal statue standing. Looking vaguely, it seemed very similar to the flying goddess statue on the top of the snow mountain. Go and have a look, Qin Yang said softly. Creak, but suddenly, the ice crystal ground, where they were suddenly shattered and turned into countless ice chips. Bang! Qin Yang and others fell directly into it. In the brief darkness, bang! Qin Yang finally felt his feet on the ground. Where is this? Qin Yang looked around and found himself in an ice crystal maze. There stood towering ice walls, extending in all directions. The ground was still in the shape of ice crystals, which could reflect people's figures. Qingsu. Qin Yang tried to spread his perception, but he didn't feel anyone's aura, so he could only shout. But there was no response. I didn't expect it to be so troublesome. This immortal inheritance is really not that easy to obtain. Qin Yang shook his head. He was not interested in slowly looking for an exit in this ice crystal maze. He stepped on the ground, soared into the sky, and suddenly landed on the top of a high ice crystal wall. At this time, he looked into the distance. He saw endless ice walls appearing in his eyes, as if there was no end. I really don't believe it. Qin Yang sneered, picked a direction at random, and leaped into the distance. It took half an hour. With Qin Yang's speed, this half an hour was enough to cross thousands of miles. But the ice crystal maze in his eyes was still the same as before, with no end. During this period, he did not meet any of Ling Qingsu, Song Lingzi, and Yunling. It's really a bit weird. Qin Yang frowned and jumped down from the top of the ice crystal wall. He looked at the ice crystal wall. This wall was like a mirror, and another him appeared. But Qin Yang's expression changed. In reality, his expression should not have changed. But the self on the ice crystal wall was smiling, revealing a strange smile. Like to laugh. Qin Yang snorted coldly and punched the ice crystal wall. In the ice crystal wall, Qin Yang's mirror image also followed his movements and punched. When the fists of the two collided on the wall, Qin Yang actually felt that he had punched someone. With a loud bang, the ice crystal wall exploded into pieces. Qin Yang's face changed slightly the next moment. As the ice crystal wall broke, he seemed to have alarmed some strange power. The ice crystal walls on all four sides showed their own mirror images, and the scene was the same as before, with strange smiles on their faces. Qin Yang did not get angry when he saw this scene. He realized that these ice crystal walls were just trying to anger him and make his mind manic. He closed his eyes and felt everything around him. Sometimes, using eyes and using the mind to perceive are completely two different worlds. When his mind was quiet, all the ice crystal walls disappeared, leaving only a dead silence. The only light source was an ice sculpture. But now this ice sculpture was entangled by countless strange black vines, bound up, as if sealed. When Qin Yang came to the ice sculpture, he finally saw its appearance clearly. It was the flying goddess before. Could it be that there are ghost species revived here too? Qin Yang looked at the black vines entangled in the tree, thinking, these vines are covered with thorns, emitting a sinister and strange aura, which makes people feel uneasy. Suddenly, a voice came from behind Qin Yang. Master. Ling Qingsu also walked over from a distance. Qingsu, why are you here? Qin Yang asked in surprise. I don't know why I fell into an ice crystal maze. Later, a voice kept calling me, and my consciousness became more and more confused. I don't know what happened, and I appeared here. Ling Qingsu herself didn't understand why she appeared here. Is this statue calling you? Try to sense it first. Qin Yang said softly. Ling Qingsu and this statue have a blood relationship, so they should be able to establish some kind of connection. Ling Qingsu naturally obeyed Qin Yang's words. She immediately came to the statue, closed her eyes, and tried to establish a connection with the statue. Not long after, Qin Yang could feel that the ice sculpture seemed to be emitting some kind of fluctuations. It seems that there is a real connection, Qin Yang said to himself. Not long after, Ling Qingsu opened her eyes. Young master, I roughly know what's going on. Tell me about it. Qin Yang nodded. This statue of the goddess is indeed my ancestor, Jihuan Zuanu. This is her palace. In the mythological era, after the void ghost species invaded, Jihuan Zuanu and the immortals and Buddhas joined forces to go to the void to fight them, leaving a trace of remnant soul in this palace. Later, the mythological era ended, and this ice palace secret realm has been hidden and has not been brought to the world. Until the ancient times, a ghost species happened to land nearby. At that time, there was no Daewoo dynasty, and a huge tribe of nearly 1 million people lived here. The arrival of the ghost species was very terrifying for this tribe, and nearly half of them were killed or injured. In desperation, the high priest of this tribe led the tribesmen to kneel down and worship the statue of the goddess on the top of the snow mountain. After sensing a trace of the remnant soul of Jihuan Zuanu, she felt pity in her heart and suppressed the ghost species. But this is only a remnant soul after all, and after a long period of consumption, its power has been severely weakened. So the remnant soul of the 9-yin mysterious lady can only suppress this ghost seed and bring it back to the secret realm of the immortal mansion to prevent it from causing harm to the world. Ling Qingsu had obviously obtained a lot of information from the communication with the ice sculpture just now. Now that the spiritual energy has revived, has the suppressed ghost seed also moved? Qin Yang roughly understood. Yes, these black vines are spread out by the ghost seed. The ice crystal maze we saw just now was also formed by the strange power emitted by the ghost seed. Ling Qingsu said in a deep voice. That's easy to solve. This ghost seed has not yet fully revived. I can still kill it. Qin Yang looked at the ice and snow statue, as if sensing the location of the ghost seed. Soon, he really felt a strange and gloomy power under the ice and snow statue of the 9-yin mysterious lady. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 372 Mirror Image. I feel it. It's right below the ice crystal statue. Qin Yang said in a deep voice. Master, how can I help you? Ling Qingsu asked. She didn't want to be a burden to Qin Yang all the time, but wanted to be his helper. It's very simple. You communicate with this ice crystal statue and directly release the ghost seed. Leave the rest to me. Qin Yang said softly. Ling Qingsu heard it and immediately closed her eyes as if she began to communicate with the ice crystal statue. 10 seconds later, the ice crystal statue began to tremble. Then, fine cracks began to emerge in the ice crystal statue and quickly spread throughout the statue. Bang! With a crisp sound, the ice crystal statue suddenly exploded and left. A dark cave appeared at the location of the original base of the ice crystal statue, and a strange and gloomy atmosphere continued to rise. Qingsu, do you still remember Uncle Lee? He has been missing you. When things here are over, we will go to see him. Qin Yang looked at the dark cave and said lightly, okay. Ling Qingsu nodded. Qin Yang turned his head and looked at Ling Qingsu, smiling and said, you are not Qingsu. You are the ghost seed. Ling Qingsu heard this. Her delicate face was full of confusion. Master, are you doubting me? Qin Yang looked at Ling Qingsu and said lightly, I don't know what means you used. Judging from your temperament and appearance, you are indeed no different from Qingsu. You are like her mirror image, but there is one thing you can't imitate, that is memory. The Li Bo I mentioned doesn't actually exist. If you are Qingsu, you can't not know. Ling Qingsu heard this and stopped pretending. A strange smile appeared on her face. Master, when did you find out? You made up a good story, but you overlooked one thing. Qin Yang said seriously. Which one? Ling Qingsu looked puzzled. Her story should be flawless. After the mythological era, for some unknown reason, the immortals and Buddhas had long since disappeared. The remnant soul of the 9-yin mysterious woman you mentioned should not exist. Of course. It is also possible that I don't know enough. So I tried to ask more questions. Qin Yang said softly. So that's the case. I will make up a better story next time. Ling Qingsu smiled. No next time. Let me see what your true face is. Qin Yang's body burst out with deep energy, and a black tortoise phantom appeared behind him. He attacked directly. Even though the opponent looked like Ling Qingsu, Qin Yang did not hold back. His big hand was wrapped in deep blue airflow, and he grabbed the opponent fiercely. When his hand fell on Ling Qingsu, the opponent was instantly like a broken mirror, turning into countless fragments. At the same time, the entire grey world was also collapsing. Qin Yang returned to the empty and extremely cold ice crystal square again. It turns out that everything is fake. We didn't fall from this ice crystal square at all. Everything is an illusion. Qin Yang understood. He looked at the ice crystal statue. Song Lingzi, Yunling and Ling Qingsu all fell into a coma, leaning against the ice crystal statue. I didn't expect that someone could escape my lies. A strange and obscure whisper sounded in front. This is the way ghost species communicate. Although Qin Yang couldn't understand it, he could understand the meaning. He looked forward. A monster appeared in his eyes. It was a mirror, more than 3 meters high. The frame was formed by countless rotten and smelly arms intertwined, looking bloody and terrifying. A dozen rotten claws supported the mirror and quickly approached Qin Yang. Mirror. No wonder you can copy Qingsu. Qin Yang smiled. Qin Yang, are you ready? This mirror ghost species was not completely crazy and seemed to still have thoughts. Ready. What about you? Qin Yang also asked with a smile. Almost. Get ready to welcome yourself, Qin Yang. The mirror ghost species muttered to itself. The next moment, the flesh and blood limbs wrapped around the mirror body began to petrify, as if fixed in place. The next moment, a figure walked out of the mirror. His temperament, demeanor, and appearance were exactly the same as Qin Yang's. The two stood face to face and smiled at each other. Fight with yourself? I haven't tried it yet. I hope you won't disappoint me. Qin Yang twisted his neck. Then the self opposite him also twisted his neck. The next moment, as if in sync, the two of them condensed a black tortoise sword in their hands, turning into a ray of dim light and quickly sweeping out. The moment the two rays of dim light intertwined, they suddenly exploded and turned into two seas of blood. The bloody and terrifying aura echoed in the ice crystal square. Qin Yang and the mirror ghost species fought frantically. Both sides used the 9 swords of the wild sea. In an instant, the two sides fought hundreds of moves, and the fierce sword energy tore the ice crystal square apart. Qin Yang was also testing the strength of the mirror ghost species, constantly increasing his strength and increasing the speed of his sword. But no matter how strong he was, the mirror ghost species could always keep up with his rhythm and would never fall behind. Death Sea floating and sinking. Qin Yang didn't believe that the mirror ghost seed could really completely simulate his power. The black tortoise sword was wrapped with amazing death intent, as if it turned into a dead sea and swallowed the mirror ghost seed fiercely. The mirror ghost seed seemed to know Qin Yang's thoughts. When he drew his sword, he also swung his own black tortoise sword and cut out a dead sea floating and sinking. Bang! When the two sword lights intertwined, Qin Yang roared wildly, and his left hand was full of power enough to destroy the mountains, and he hit the mirror ghost seed fiercely, dragon slaying and breaking the void. Boom. The mirror ghost seed also punched, and it collided with Qin Yang's fist. Boom. With the two of them as a center, the ground of the ice crystal square shattered and exploded crazily. Ice debris was flying all over the sky. Two identical figures separated fiercely. Qin Yang looked at the mirror ghost seed opposite, thinking. He didn't make a move again. The mirror ghost seed didn't choose to make a move either, as if observing. I thought I could really fight myself. It turns out it's all fake. Qin Yang shook his head suddenly. The next moment, he rushed to the mirror like a mad thunder and punched it hard. Opposite Qin Yang, the mirror ghost also punched the mirror. Bang, as if some kind of power was disturbed. The figure of Qin Yang who walked out of the mirror twisted and then turned into nothingness. And the mirror made a distorted sound. It's impossible why you can see the flaw in this move. Qin Yang grinned and suddenly used the magical power of the Dharma body. The dragon was wrapped around his left hand and the snake was wrapped around his right hand. The dark blue airflow lingered, and his body suddenly expanded to 5 or 6 meters high. He looked at the mirror ghost, because there are some things in me that you can't imitate. Just now, I was just fighting with the air. After saying that, Qin Yang suddenly burst out with terrible divine power, as if the 9-day god had descended to the world, and punched the mirror hard. Chapter 373 Backhand. When fighting with the mirror just now, Qin Yang felt strange. Because he knew that, even if the other party could imitate his own cultivation and martial arts, there was one thing that could not be simulated. That was the proficiency panel he carried with him. Relying on the proficiency panel, he could condense magical powers after each martial art was perfected. And how could the mirror ghost seed imitate these? Exclamation mark. So everything just now was just an illusion. The mirror ghost seed did not simulate his scene at all. It just used some kind of power that polluted the mind, making Qin Yang mistakenly believe that he was really fighting with the mirror image. Bang! The smooth mirror surface of the mirror ghost seed suddenly stretched out a ferocious and fierce ghost claw and punched Qin Yang. Qin Yang's aura was as majestic as the sea, and he had the power of a dragon, which was extremely terrifying. The ghost claw was blasted by the huge power contained in the fist and exploded violently. Qin Yang's iron fist hit the mirror like a meteorite. But the mirror surface was like soft rubber. It actually sunken in and then grew dense tentacles, tightly wrapped around Qin Yang's tentacles, as if it wanted to swallow his entire arm. Qin Yang sneered and immediately activated Bidao Zen Wu Yuan Qi. His arm seemed to turn into an extremely cold column in an instant, emitting terrible cold air. For a moment, the strange mirror surface was instantly frozen. Qin Yang exerted force with his right hand and pulled it out of the mirror surface fiercely. At this moment, the mirror surface showed strange changes again, and a strange eye emerged. This eye has a vertical pupil, but the pupil is in the shape of a triangle, and it suddenly shot out a laser. Qin Yang also roared at this time, and the Zuan Wu knife appeared in his hands, and he slashed forward fiercely. Desolate sea, raging sea, roaring. Crash. The void instantly fluctuated, as if the deep sea raised huge waves, and smashed towards the mirror surface fiercely. Puff. The mirror surface was chopped, and cut off by Qin Yang's knife. Damn it. The mirror ghost sighed, and finally turned into black gas and dissipated. To be honest, the mirror ghost felt that his death was extremely unfair. This Qin Yang seemed to be its nemesis. Even the mirror illusion was easily seen through by him. Once it came to a head-on battle, the mirror ghost, which had not been revived successfully, was naturally far inferior to Qin Yang. As the mirror ghost dissipated, Yunling, Song Lingzi, and Ling Qingsu finally woke up. My head hurts so much. How did I get back here? Am I not in that damn maze? Song Lingzi covered his head and felt a splitting pain. He remembered that he had just fallen into an endless ice crystal maze and kept looking for a way out. But as he searched, he felt dizzy and lost consciousness. There is no maze at all. It's all just an illusion, Qin Yang said softly. Hearing his voice, Song Lingzi seemed to realize something. Yunling was surprised and said, there seems to be a residual breath of the ghost here. Well, but that ghost has been solved by me, Qin Yang said softly. This ghost species should be a legacy from the mythological era. Ling Qingsu seemed to have received some information. It should be that this ghost species is good at illusion and can confuse people's minds. Even I almost fell for it, Qin Yang said in a deep voice. If he hadn't caught some loopholes, I'm afraid it would take more time. Then you are still reliable, Song Lingzi said with a smile. Qingsu, go. Accept the inheritance that Jiuai and Zuanv will give you, Qin Yang encouraged softly. Ling Qingsu nodded and gently touched the arm of the ice crystal sculpture. When the palm touched, a strange wave dissipated. Ling Qingsu's whole body began to emit cold air and then quickly condensed into ice. Qin Yang was not too worried. He felt that Ling Qingsu's vitality had not disappeared. So, he simply sat cross-legged on the ice crystal ground and practiced. Song Lingzi originally wanted to take this opportunity to have a good chat with junior sister Yunling. After all, they hardly had a good chat since they met. But the other party ignored him at all and also learned from Qin Yang, sitting cross-legged to practice. Seeing this, Song Lingzi could only shake his head helplessly and could only sit down next to Yunling. In this cold ice crystal square, the faint light flickered quietly. Here, the passage of time is difficult to sense. Qin Yang could only calculate, based on his own speed of practicing Bidao Zen Wu Yuan Qi, and it was about 7 days. On this day, the ice sculpture of Ling Qingsu finally underwent a strange change. A ray of faint light emanated from Ling Qingsu. The frost on her body was constantly melting. Hoo 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 for a while. The ice crystal square was filled with endless wind and snow. In this wind and snow, a shadow like a god was vaguely formed. This shadow of the god vaguely looked like a goddess, opening her arms and hugging Ling Qingsu in the middle. But in an instant, Ling Qingsu's aura suddenly surged. When she opened her eyes, her cold and clear eyes seemed to be filled with endless coldness. She just floated in the air, like a goddess. Whoosh whoosh, the snowstorm in the ice crystal palace became even more violent. Using the power of heaven and earth, I really broke through. This immortal Buddha bloodline is easy to break through. Song Lingzi's voice was full of envy. He has also practiced hard for many years, and after the recovery of spiritual energy, his cultivation progress is also good. But compared with Ling Qingsu, there is a world of difference. Yunling's eyes are full of satisfaction. There is no master who doesn't want his apprentice to surpass himself. After a long time, Ling Qingsu slowly descended from the air. The snowstorm that filled the ice crystal square also slowly stopped at this moment. Master. Finally, I didn't disappoint you. Ling Qingsu smiled at Qin Yang. Since awakening the 9 Yin mysterious woman bloodline in her body, she rarely smiled, and her personality became more and more cold and indifferent. Only in front of Qin Yang, all this did not exist. Not bad. Qin Yang nodded. Wait a minute. I have one more thing. Ling Qingsu stretched out her delicate jade hand. The silk ribbon wrapped around the ice crystal statue of the 9 Yin mysterious woman seemed to come alive and flew onto Ling Qingsu's body. Is this an immortal weapon? Qin Yang asked curiously. After all, this is an artifact left by the 9 Yin mysterious woman. Before, when they were in the desolate moon forbidden land, Liu Yan and King Niu obtained inheritances respectively. But those were the inheritances of the powerful people who ascended to heaven. The 9 Yin mysterious woman is a real immortal Buddha. Yes. The name of this silk ribbon is Zuan Ling, but I need to know its specific use after I practice it. Ling Qingsu naturally would not hide anything from Qin Yang. So Qin Yang thought. It seems that, although the immortal Buddha disappeared without a trace in the mythological era, they still left some tricks. For example, the bloodline of the immortal Buddha, such as this immortal weapon. So it seems that this void ghost clan may not be powerless when it comes. Qin Yang thought to himself. Chapter 374 Construction. After Ling Qingsu collected the Zuan Iron Ling, the ice crystal statue began to show dense cracks, as if it was about to break apart. Then the entire ice crystal square began to shake. It looks like this place is going to break apart, Song Lingzi said in surprise. Let's go. Anyway, we have obtained the inheritance we wanted, and Qingsu has also broken through to the Yuanshan stage, Qin Yang said softly. Several people quickly left the ice crystal palace. When they arrived at the door, the 2 ice crystal guards were still guarding the door. It seemed that they were going to disappear with the ice crystal palace. Are you willing to go with me? Ling Qingsu suddenly asked. The 2 ice crystal guards suddenly looked at each other, as if they had reached some kind of agreement. The next moment, they turned into a ball of light and fell into Ling Qingsu's hands. They were actually 2 miniature ice crystal guards. Is this possible? Song Lingzi exclaimed. These ice crystal guards are things from the mythological era, and they are extraordinary. Ling Qingsu's expression changed, and she said softly, these 2 ice crystal guards told me that they need a lot of spirit stones to activate them. It's okay. Now the spiritual energy of heaven and earth is reviving, and spirit stone veins are constantly appearing like mushrooms after rain. Song Lingzi smiled. I'll get some for you when I go back. Qin Yang also smiled. Boom. At this time, the ice crystal palace shook even more violently. I'll take you away. Ling Qingsu began to pinch the magic formula with both hands. After a burst of blue spiritual light flashed, several people immediately disappeared from the spot, and the ice crystal palace collapsed completely soon after. On the top of the snowy mountain, in front of the goddess statue, a blue light emerged and turned into several figures. Finally out. Song Lingzi looked at the scene of heavy snow and sighed slightly, and Ling Qingsu also came to the goddess statue and kowtowed 3 times respectfully. Let's go. We have other things to do. We'll come back when we have time in the future, Qin Yang said softly. Ling Qingsu nodded. The 4 of them quickly left the snowy mountain and headed for Dayu Imperial City. As soon as they entered the city, Zhang Huang immediately appeared in front of them. Senior Qin, you are finally back. Zhang Huang smiled bitterly. These days, Qin Yang and his men suddenly disappeared, which scared Zhao Zhangming and Qi Kang enough. They thought that he was dissatisfied with Cui Bian's handling of the matter and left directly. You know, the teleportation formation has not been set up yet, which is related to the future fate of the Dayu dynasty. Zhao Zhangming can only send people to find Qin Yang's whereabouts. But Qin Yang has been in the Immortal Mansion secret realm these days, so naturally no one can find him. Just when they thought Qin Yang would never appear again, suddenly there was news that he appeared in Dayu Imperial City, and Zhang Huang hurried over as soon as possible. I didn't say I was leaving. Why are you in a hurry? Qin Yang shook his head, thinking that Qi Kang was making a fuss. Hearing this, Zhang Huang smiled bitterly in his heart, but did not explain. Senior Qin, Chief Zhao is waiting for you in the Sky Patrol Division. Why don't you go meet him first? Zhang Huang asked in a low voice. Yes. I just happen to want to go find him, too. By the way, call Qi Kang over as well. Qin Yang called out the Great Yu Emperor by his name. Zhang Huang clasped his fists and said, I'll arrange it right away. Qingsu, you guys find a place to stay first. I'll contact you later. Qin Yang said again. Just as Ling Qingsu was about to reply, Zhang Huang hurriedly said, why don't you stay at our Sky Patrol Division? Our place has a quiet environment, and we have elixirs, spirit stones, and everything else. It's much better than the inns in the city. He was afraid that these people would stay in the inns in the city, and he didn't know what would happen. What do you think? Qin Yang asked. The Sky Patrol Division is not bad, it's quieter. Song Lingzi said softly. Ling Qingsu and Yunling had no objections. That's it. Qin Yang and the others followed Zhang Huang and went to the Sky Patrol Division with him. After arriving at the Sky Patrol Division, Zhang Huang arranged the accommodation for Ling Qingsu and others, while Qin Yang went to find Zhao Zhangming. Inside the hall, at this time, in addition to Zhao Zhangming, there was another majestic man. It was Qi Kang. When he saw Qin Yang coming in, he didn't even have the airs of a monarch, but greeted him first. Seeing this, Qin Yang also returned a salute. After both of them said some polite words, they got to the point. Brother Qin, we have prepared the materials for building the teleportation array. I wonder if you need to prepare anything else? Qi Kang asked softly. I have also found the spiritual master who will build the array. Then there is only one question left. Where is this teleportation array built? Qin Yang said in a deep voice. He didn't know much about the actual situation of Daewoo Imperial City, so it would be better to let Qi Kang decide. I have also studied it these days. I think it is not good to be in Daewoo Imperial City, and it may cause some panic. So it can only be outside the city. Qi Kang said. Every time this teleportation array is opened, it consumes spirit stones, causing some strange phenomena in the world. If it is placed in the city, it is indeed not suitable. We have secretly built a place more than 10 miles outside the city. This place will be guarded by the military prison department in the future, and no outsiders can get close. Zhao Zhangming added. It is obvious that they have already considered everything. Well, let's start from tomorrow. Qin Yang didn't waste any words and directly took out the formation diagram for constructing the formation and handed it to Zhao Zhangming. You build this formation first. The spiritual master I found will also need some time to study this teleportation formation. After the few people talked about some details of constructing the formation, Qin Yang left the hall. He also wanted to teach Lin Qingsu the teleportation stone and the teleportation formation. Because it is useless to just build the formation, it is just a shell. It requires a spiritual master to engrave the space formation pattern to resonate with the heaven and earth. After that, everything was carried out in full swing. Qi Kang and Zhao Zhangming attached great importance to the teleportation formation and sent all the spiritual masters of the patrol sky division out, fearing that there would be any mistakes in the construction of the formation. Lin Qingsu was also constantly studying the space array. You know, Qin Yang only brought one Qiankan stone. If there is any flaw in this array, the Qiankan stone will be torn apart by the disordered space force. In this way, it will take a long time to build a teleportation array. So Lin Qingsu can't make any mistakes here. Qin Yang was relaxed, hiding in the room to practice all day, and rarely appeared. A month later, more than 10 miles away from Daewoo Emperor City. This place itself is a plain. In a month, more than a dozen towers, a large number of buildings and a dark square have been built. A large number of soldiers patrolled near the dark square, with a sentry every 3 steps, which can be said to be heavily guarded. In the center of the square, dozens of spiritual masters were nervously building a magic array. It will take about 5 days for the framework of the teleportation array to be completely completed. After that, it depends on you. Qi Kang looked at the busy scene below and said softly. Qin Yang stood next to him and said softly, well, leave it to us. Chapter 375 Attack. 5 days later, the framework of the teleportation array was completely completed. Qi Kang sent several old spiritual masters to survey repeatedly, and only after confirming that there were no mistakes did Qin Yang proceed to the next step. Of course, the next thing actually had nothing to do with Qin Yang. He was at best a guardian. The most critical person was Lin Qingsu. She was also walking in the gray square, confirming whether there were any loopholes in the array. Is this the woman that Cui Bian forcibly abducted? Qi Kang and Zhao Zhangming looked at it from a distance and asked softly. It's her. This woman was Qin Yang's personal maid, and later she was accepted as a disciple by Youngling. No wonder Qin Yang was so angry. Zhao Zhangming said softly. These things were naturally investigated after Cui Bian's death. No wonder at such a young age, he is already a Yuanshan spiritual master. The blood of immortals and Buddhas is really magical. Qi Kang sighed. Even in Daewoo Imperial City, there are not many Yuanshan spiritual masters, and they are all old antiques. Compared with them, Lin Qingsu is too young. It is indeed the most appropriate for her to engrave the space array this time. The blood of immortals and Buddhas is magical. They have stronger souls than ordinary spiritual masters, and can sense more subtle changes. Zhao Zhangming said softly. I hope there will be no accidents. Qi Kang's eyes were serious. After preparing for so long, he would not allow any accidents to happen in this teleportation array. Don't worry, Your Majesty. General Bei is already patrolling outside. Now there are heavy guards here, so there will be no problem. Zhao Zhangming smiled. This time, the 3 Tangshan Washans of Daewoo Imperial City were dispatched to build the array. This is not counting Qin Yang. This is already the strongest Linup of Dao Imperial City. Yes. Qi Kang nodded. Then it was a matter of waiting. After Ling Qingsu checked for several hours and confirmed that everything was correct, she said to Qin Yang, "Young master, you can start to arrange the array core." The array core she mentioned naturally refers to the Qiankan stone. "Then let's start. Relax a little. Even if you fail, it's nothing." Qin Yang smiled. He didn't want Ling Qingsu to be too nervous. "I understand." Ling Qingsu nodded. Qin Yang took out a dark stone. The stone was about the size of a fist, with many holes on the surface, and it looked a bit ugly. "This is the Qiankan stone," Qin Yang said softly. Ling Qingsu took the stone and said seriously, "Master, don't worry, I will definitely set up this space teleportation array. Just like the fake body that the mirror ghost had conjured up before." She didn't want to be a burden to Qin Yang all the time, and always add trouble to Qin Yang. This time, she was determined to succeed in setting up the teleportation array. "Go." Qin Yang smiled. Ling Qingsu nodded. She came to the center of the space array frame, sat cross-legged, adjusted her mind and breath. "It's time to start." Qi Kang's eyes were solemn. "I hope it will succeed," Zhao Zhangming muttered to himself. The people in the entire gray square were quickly cleared, leaving only Qin Yang and Ling Qingsu. An hour later, the Qiankan stone in Ling Qingsu's hand floated up. A strange vibration was generated. Weird colors appeared in the sky above the entire square. Smoky purple, scarlet, light blue. All kinds of weird colors were entangled together, as if they were thrown into various pigments. At this time, the Qiankan stone also began to break away from some stone fragments. This was Ling Qingsu using her own thoughts, like a knife carving the Qiankan stone. The mysterious ancient array pattern gradually emerged in the Qiankan stone. If you look closely, you can find that the array pattern that seems to be only a little is actually formed by many densely packed fine lines. It is not as easy as imagined to make the Qiankan stone the core of the array. It is necessary to carve 98,000 array patterns. It is conceivable how difficult it is to carve so many array patterns on a fist-sized black stone. Ordinary spiritual masters simply do not have such a huge spiritual power. Only spiritual masters who have entered the Yuanshan can do it. Moreover, this process is extremely long, and there cannot be any mistakes in it, otherwise the Qiankan stone will be destroyed. No one dared to speak, for fear of disturbing Ling Qingsu. The huge grey square was dead silent. They all knew that whether this teleportation formation could succeed or not was related to everyone in Kunshan continent. Suddenly, Qin Yang opened his eyes and looked into the distance. He felt the ground shaking. The vibration was very slight, but the force that could shake the earth must be great. Not only him, but Qi Kang and Zhao Zhangming also felt it. "What's going on?" Qi Kang frowned. "I'll go check it out now." Zhao Zhangming's figure flashed and disappeared directly on the spot. The vibration came from a giant elephant. The giant elephant was pitch black with extremely dense hair, but its head was an ugly and ferocious ghost face, running wildly towards the grey square. Its weight was so heavy that it naturally made the earth tremble when it charged. On another mountain, a 5 or 6 meter tall white bone monster walked out of the mountain. The back of the white bone monster was hunched, and its arms were so long that it seemed to be able to reach the ground. The head was a floating pale flame, with a distorted face vaguely emerging. It looked at the wonderful celestial phenomenon in the distance, uttered some strange whispers, and strode towards it. A huge dark cloud also appeared above the white bone ghost. This dark cloud was quite strange, and it kept making some crazy screams. When you look closely, you will find that this is not a dark cloud at all, but a group of dense black bats. These bats have red eyes, keep flapping their wings, and screaming from their mouths, as if tearing the sky apart. In addition, there are many strange beings that keep appearing. They seem to have made an appointment, and are all heading towards the grey square. This guy near the grey square Baizenshan was leading his soldiers in formation, waiting for the monster that caused the earth to tremble to appear. When the ghost-faced elephant appeared in his eyes, Baizenshan's eyes flashed with horror. It was too huge, like a dark giant mountain moving sideways, giving people a terrifying sense of oppression. Even though the soldiers were well trained, they had never seen such a terrifying monster, and they were terrified. At this time, Zhao Zhangming appeared next to Baizenshan. This gloomy and chaotic aura should be a revived ghost species. Zhao Zhangming said in a deep voice. The so-called revived ghost species generally refers to the ghost species left over from ancient times. These ghost species have been quiet for a long time, and even if they are revived by spiritual energy, their power is far less terrifying than in their heyday. Zhao Zhangming himself has dealt with these ghost species many times, but the momentum of this charging ghost-faced elephant is too terrifying, and I'm afraid that it has recovered a lot of strength. Xiao Zhao is still there. Bei Zhenchen suddenly exclaimed. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.